Ark Survival Evolved is a game featuring a multitude of bosses to fight across its 12 different maps, and I'm a guy who's crazy enough to think that he can beat all of them in a singular 100 days video. So to do this, I've downloaded a mod that combines all 12 maps into one, allowing me to collect all the artifacts, tributes, and tames that I'll need to defeat all 8 bosses. I'm excluding the bosses from Genesis 1 and 2 since it's literally just different versions of Rockwell. And don't worry, I'll easily kill the aberration version of him. Yeah, I'm really that confident.
Good for you, I'm so impressed.
I'm so confident in fact that I will be defeating each of these 8 bosses on alpha difficulty within the 100 days. Yeah, I told you, I'm crazy. Anyways, I've got to get to work. I've got quite a few bosses to kill. So after making my character and spawning in at South Zone 2, I had a quick look around to the not so islandy island. This is different immediately. In typical Ark fashion, as soon as I turned around, I saw a dodo getting absolutely violated by a dilo. Nope, dilo. Forgot. I am playing Ark. Let's get to work, man. I've got 8 bosses to kill in 100 days. What have I gotten myself into, dude? Having no time to waste, I quickly challenged a random tree to a fist fight for Thatch and then unlocked the first essential engrams. I am playing with just a few quality of life mods, while obviously using the big one that adds a bunch of stuff to this map, like the giant floating island over there that looks to be from Crystal Isles. Another thing that's now possible is realm teleportation, similar to that of Fjordor. There were a bunch of island zones, as well as key landmarks that I could go to on the DLC maps, such as Extinction, Aberration, and Genesis 2. Awesome. Alright, let's get to work though. Definitely not teleporting anywhere right now. With the first pickaxe made, I could smack this rock a couple of times per flint and turn that into a hatchet. A simple tool that's perfect for acquiring hide, the next important resource on the list. Alright, I'm sorry dude, you gotta die for my progress. Since this Lystro was a level 130, it took several smacks for it to exit life so I could finally get my hide. Seeing as the hatchet was not the best of melee weaponry, I decided I would farm up a few spears instead. I also made and placed a campfire to start cooking up the raw meat from the Lystro. Let's keep killing. Hide, gonna need a lot of that. A trike and turtle were probably a bit ambitious targets, but there was also a dilo hiding beneath them. And that was a much more optimal target. Oh, this map looks different. Okay, so yeah, you can see where I am. You can see the desert islands next to me. I think middle, far left of the map, that's the aberration area. Top right looks to be extinction. Some floating islands dotted around. There's a whole new section of snow way up there, and I'm sure I'll just discover more as I play. I was far from ready to go and explore all the new parts of the map though, so back to killing innocent creatures I went, starting with this dodo. How did you survive that? A second spear to the dome sealed the deal. I then returned to my campfire to throw the meat into it, and I gathered a little bit of wood to repair my hatchet and refuel my campfire. I also leveled up to level 9, meaning I can now unlock bolas, and after picking a few bushes, smacking up a rock, and a tree, I made a total of 8 of them, pushing me up to level 10. That being said, I crafted a bow and I farmed up a few arrows for it as well. But before setting out to continue my hunting activities, I also wanted to get clothes, so I picked up more fiber and made a set of cloth. Now I could go back to acquiring more hide. Okay, I think I'm gonna grind myself up to level 21, is that it for Trinks? And then I think my best move is definitely to get a flyer and then establish a main base straight away, since I'm gonna have to create up multiple armies of dinos, as well as tame stuff that can go collect many artifacts. So the next course of action would be of course to farm up copious amounts of cooking pots to power level up myself to level 21. While mindlessly farming, I didn't even notice that I already went beyond my goal, and I was now at level 23, so I can unlock a bunch of new stuff. I crafted a thatch foundation, mortar and pestle, and I started spoiling meat. And while waiting around for that, I headed out to both kill more things and check a few of the pteranodons that I saw flying around the area. Oh, hello. Why has this guy got crazy colors? Anyhow, after killing that, I made the executive decision of swapping out my cloth drip for a better set of hide armor. Alright, what level is this pteranodon? 25? Ooh, that is terrible. The rest of the beach also looked kinda empty, so I returned to my little outpost for the night. I crafted my first couple of trink arrows in the early morning of day 2, but I still had some time left before all the meat spoiled, so I got to gathering narco berries by hand. Bunch of the meat spoil, bunch of narcotics. That'll give me a bunch of XP as well. I made more stone arrows, some of which I turned into tranks. Now I could actually head out and look for my first tame, so I made myself a handy pickup gun and grabbed all my stuff and then headed out. Alright, dude, let's try and find a pteranodon to tame. Gonna be a little hard without a spyglass, but it's gotta be doable, right? I was also getting more than a bit thirsty, so I ran down to the river to take a sip of water just to get my toes bit by a piranha. Oh, screw you, dude. Not a good sign, as I wanted to cross this river in one piece to continue my adventure, but I had to go for it one way or another, so I climbed atop this rock to get a jumping head start and then dove in. Come on, come on. Oh yeah, they're coming for me. Come on, let me out. Ooh, that hurts. Okay, I made it. Hello. Some free hide in the form of a low-level Lystro is hard to pass up on, especially this early into my journey, and I shortly followed up that with a dodo as well. Now running down the beach towards the desert islands, I came across my second pteranodon, but it was also a massive disappointment. 45, that's terrible. Oh, dude, Genesis bog tree right there. That's crazy. Going down the beach, I could feel the climate taking a toll on me. The heat made me take off my hide armor, and it absolutely shredded through my hydration. The only way to not actively burn alive was to fully submerge in the river, so I decided I would rather go the other way instead. So I put my drip back on and clapped another dodo for hide. Now back at the piranha-infested river, I waited to regain my stamina before doing some more river rock parkour to get to the other side again. And surprisingly, I made it over to the other side completely unharmed. That's probably just thanks to the slow reaction time of this ugly fish. Didn't even get me. Boom. Hello. So anyways, I made it all the way back to where I started, and this time I started heading in the big floating islands direction. How do I cross this water though? That's the question. The answer is going inland. Soon after entering the dense jungle, I spotted a very colorful looking Perry. Oh, we could tame a Perry. I'm taming the Perry. Mythical Perry, dude, it's purple. This rare species of Perry also took quite a few trank arrows to fall asleep, but once it did, I got to gathering Meho berries straight away. Definitely looking for a pteranodon first, but I will gladly take a Perry. Now that it was taming, I could unlock and craft a saddle for it. Boom, magical Perry, dude. Just floating. There's a pteranodon up there as well. Hold up. Oh, it's landing. I had to get up to it, but to do that, I had to run all the way around and fight a level 145 Dilo off while also dying of thirst. And after all that, the PT decided to just take off and keep its level a mystery. Yeah, that pteranodon might be gone, but at least Perry tamed so I can name him and saddle him up. It also started raining, so soon my thirst problem was no more. Now continuing my hike through the jungle, I spotted another pteranodon just below me, so I jumped down to check it out. Oh, sorry Perry, just kind of snapped your ankles. There's no way you're flying up that cliff after I just jumped down. Yeah, these pteranodons just insisted on staying away from me at all costs. And I can't see anything because of this fog. Nice. So I ran back down to the beach as the jungle was really not optimal for finding anything, and approximately 5 seconds later, something dawned on me. Oh, you know what I can do? I could teleport somewhere. Where could I go? So after a not so careful consideration of all the options, I decided I would go up to one of the floating islands. Screw it, let's go to the floating island. It says it's easy. It's gotta be easy. Is this a bad idea? Probably, to be honest. But after teleporting, I quickly changed my mind, as my face didn't get eaten off straight away, and I spotted free metal. Holy good idea. This is an amazing idea. Oh, there's crystal wyverns. Are they the friendly ones? A crystal wyvern was much better than an alternative mere pteranodon, especially since they're pretty easy to tame, so I ran up to this one. But there was a slight issue. Wait, what level do I need to be? 65? Ooh. That's a high level. I'm level 29. Okay, I think I definitely found the move though. Speaking of finding things, I also came across a little cave entrance leading to a bee cave. Oh, there's a drop. Oh, there's bees. Interesting. Oh, I'm definitely keeping this in mind. This will be great for polymer later on. And I even found a little pond I could set up by. This floating island was actually quickly proving itself to be the perfect starting area for my journey. Oh, surely I can harvest some of that crystal too and get a spyglass. But I first wanted to get established here, so I unlocked the S+ stat structure engrams, and I got to work on farming up a quick base. Boom. That's 2x2 crafted up. I then slapped down the 2x2 and started furnishing it with a bed. Yes, I actually remembered to make a bed for once. Anyway, I then put the campfire and mortar and pestle down before going back out to start working on the forge and smithy for metal tools. With a couple of forges now made, I placed them down and then got the metal cooking. In the meantime, I got the rest of the resources for a smithy, and when I got back inside, I crafted one. Boom, smithy. Oh, I should have made an S+ smithy. What am I doing? Oh. I demolished a regular one, and I reformed the stone to actually make an S+ smithy this time. Awesome. Alright, let's put together a metal pickaxe as well as a hatchet. Now that I had a better set of tools, I could go out and get crystal for a spyglass. And I also stocked up on some more metal while out here. This one rich metal node was low-key clutch as I didn't even get to fully harvest it, but I already got enough metal for now. Is that a whole megalodon in that little pond? Definitely is. Anywho, I split the metal into the forges and I threw a bunch of meat onto the campfire to cook. I then also chopped down a tree in front of my house to refuel the forges before finally making the awesome spyglass. Honestly, man, this new awesome spyglass and Perry right outside, I'm feeling pretty comfortable. Now that I had a bunch of metal on the way, I wanted to get back to the level grind as these crystal wyverns were really tempting tames. Problem is gaining 30 levels. But I'm still technically on the island, so explorer nodes should exist. So that being said, I made a quick plan. I split a bunch of raw meat to spoil so I could craft up a bunch of narcotics after getting an explorer node. So in the meantime, I'll farm narco berries and then we'll just teleport, go get an explorer node or two, and then come back and start crafting tons of narcotics. So after trimming my front lawn with Perry, I made a second mortar and pestle and I headed outside to teleport back down to the island. Specifically West Zone 2, as that's the best spot for explorer nodes starting out. When I appeared on the beach like a menace, I immediately pulled out my spears to lower the local dodo population for even more raw meat. And pesky dilos were also not off the hook. Now after killing that, I got slot capped, so I hopped back on Perry to farm more narco berries. I think this will be enough. Now let's go get explorer nodes. But shortly after looting the white drop, I got ambushed by a duo of raptors. So I bowled up both of them and dipped as I didn't feel like fighting with them right now. I then made my way up to the 4x tech note, followed by the one on the beach. Now with a pretty fat XP boost now active, I started teleporting back to the floating island. Holy levels. This is what I wanted. I returned to my humble shack on day 4, and I split all the berries and spoiled meat into my mortar and pestles to start the narcotic production. Yeah, this will be easy levels. There was a wild bear roaming the area just in front of my house, so I made a couple of soul traps to store Perry in. Yeah, see, that bear was getting way too close. I'm going in here. I honestly have no idea how it didn't just aggro to me there, but I'm not gonna complain. I also started cooking more meat for myself before sitting back and waiting for the levels to roll in. Let's go farm some crystal real quick. When I returned, I made a few parachutes just in case, as the wyverns can sometimes throw you off their backs if they fly through trees or just rub up against a wall or something. While looking into the engram page, I can now also make flak armor, so of course I unlocked a set of that, grabbed metal ingots from the forges, and I threw them into the smithy to once again upgrade my attire. And just as soon as I put the new armor on, I also reached level 65. So I headed back out, deployed Perry, and I started looking for a high level candidate. Oh, 140. Yeah, I want that. I have not tamed a crystal wyvern in years, so let's see how this goes. So I stuffed Perry into my back pocket before running up to the wyvern and getting on its back. Boom. Before I can even feed it for the second time though, I got randomly thrown off its back. See, it got me. Thankfully, after landing though, it didn't take too long for me to find that wyvern again, so of course I just ran back up to it. Oh no way, it just landed by me. No! When it eventually landed again, I hopped on its back and continued feeding it. Yes! Yes, such an awesome tame. Let's go, dude. Let's go. Man, these things are quick. Now I could deal with the bear infestation in the front of my crib by turning up the heat a little. Give it a little test run. Oh, it's flame. Oh, yeah, that is what Ember meant. I thought this was a blood one at first. Yeah, you can really tell it's been a minute since I've last used the crystal wyverns, but honestly, I'm really glad they're back. Alright, man, let's fly around. I'm actually gonna go see if I can't find the Hydra ones. I'm greedy. Let's go over to another floating island. I'm assuming the blue island's gonna have the tropical crystal wyverns. Yep, I was correct. Okay. I spotted a couple of level 95s and a 100. Anyhow, I flew around the island, but I didn't find any good level tropical wyverns, so I would just stick to my Ember one and go level up instead. So I flew down to the main island where I soon came across a tech parasaur. Ooh, I forgot tech dinos are on ASC. Definitely killing this. Some free oil and electronics are always welcome in my inventory. Oh, there's the extinction expansion. Not sure what that is up there. Now, soon enough, I found an explorer note on top of a hill, so of course, I grabbed that before beelining it to a red drop in the desert. It was about to despawn, so I quickly hopped off and snagged everything inside. What did I just get? Nothing really. A filled canteen was pretty handy, and the wooden turbine could be demolished for free resources, so the drop wasn't that bad after all. Anyways, I then flew through the rest of the desert, arriving at the West Zone Island again. I landed on top of the hill where I collected the next explorer note after roasting up a couple of dilo. I think that salmon is good. Oh, I never gave this guy a name. Pretty basic looking Ember wyvern. It's a girl. Flamette. Flying over to the next note, I spotted yet another tech parasaur, some more freedom liquid for me. Alright, This guy's leveled up pretty well. Let's go back to base. But I first had to wait for a yellow drop with a ring to land, as I'm not passing up on free loot. And I'm glad I did, because flying over to the drop, I spotted a max level Anki. Ooh, 150, I'm bringing that back to base with me. The drop was mid, but the level 150 Anki was definitely worth the wait. So on day 5, I took off and tried to pick up the tank. Keyword tried. Will I not pick up Ankis with this? Are you serious? What? No way. That's insane. So the plan quickly changed from relocating the Anki to making a crossbow and coming back to tame it right in the desert. When I made it back to the floating island, I spotted a level 140 male ember wyvern, so I held off on the Anki for now and jumped on the back of that to start the feeding process. This guy's got some cool colors. Oh, and I'm off. While waiting for it to land, I checked out the terminal on this island, and that's used to summon the crystal wyvern queen. Oh, wow. Yeah, getting all those artifacts and the alpha crystal talons is not going to be fun. Thankfully though, that's a future problem for a very far in the future me. So I returned back to harassing the male ember wyvern for now. I got on its back again and waited for the second feed and got knocked off immediately. Bruh. And to make matters worse, I couldn't properly run anymore, and the wyvern kept rage baiting me by landing in front of me and then taking off straight away again. Oh my god. Soon though, it landed again just a bit further away, so I ran up to it to try to get on its back again. Why can't I get on it? Hello? Oh, what? Finally, it stopped moving for 3 seconds so I could actually lay down on its back and continue feeding it. Boom. This guy has better stats all around than this female. I threw Flamehead out and started breeding them. I also placed down that wind turbine that I got and demolished it for some metal, cementing paste, and Intel Core processing unit. Once the wyvern egg dropped, I threw that into my smithy and hopped on Perry to go out and get some more metal. After splitting that into my forges, I unlocked and crafted a crossbow, as well as a bunch of trank arrows and a few bolas. Before heading out though, I also wanted to make spike walls to make sure that 150 Anki tamed safely. So of course, I dropped a couple of trees, unlocked the spike wall engrams, and then made a few. I then grabbed some Mayho berries from Perry, and I headed back down to the desert on Flamette. When I arrived, I first had to get rid of the low-level beta male friend before I could start seducing the max-level female. Is that Ark Riz? Anyways, I also dropped a Carno that was wreaking havoc on the locals. Now with Flamette parked safely on top of the rock, I could jump down and start knocking out the Anki. No, my Anki! I used Flamette's wing flap ability to launch the Anki away, successfully making the Carnos aggro to me instead of the Anki. Now with those taken care of, I continued tranking out the Anki, but I had to be careful as its health had dropped significantly from the fight. And of course, I killed any threat that dared to get too close while continuing to pelt the Anki with tranks, and luckily it knocked out right where I wanted it to. Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. Boom. Perfect. So I gave her Mayho berries and quickly surrounded her with spike walls to keep the ops out. I was waiting around on day 6 when suddenly a red drop appeared right in front of me. Ooh, red drop coming out with my Anki? I don't mind waiting. Inside, I found an oil pump along with a bunch of random blueprints, and I wanted to see if I could somehow perhaps place the pump down somewhere. So I took off to look for an oil vein, but instead I spotted a phoenix just flying around. I could tame that. I don't need to. How can I not though? Now being on an ember wyvern and seeing the phoenix, one of the rarest dinos in Ark, I just had to try and tame it. I already had the time to kill while waiting for the Anki to tame, so this was the perfect opportunity to do so. So of course, I started spitting flames at it, slowly but surely increasing the taming bar. In like 3% per. But after that, I had to land for the stamina, and I decided to just leave it be and then focus on a different side quest. Guess I'll just keep looting drops in the meantime. And the first yellow drop hooked me up with an extra canteen, a gift that I couldn't deny. Next up, that red drop. I first had to kill a few buggy boys before opening it up and finding a decent apprentice chainsaw. Oh, chainsaw's kinda cracked. Now flying back to the Anki, I did some more pest control. I also despawned a purple drop with a ring as it was utter garbage and then waited for it to finish taming. Boom, Anki tamed. I picked up my spikes and named her Ankette. Let's do it back to base, get a saddle. I also need to tame an RG. Whoa! On my way back, I opened up yet another yellow drop with a ring, giving me yet another canteen. Now finally, back at the crib, I threw out Ankette and then made her a saddle. I also made a bunch more narcotics with the spoiled meat in my inventory before saddling up Ankette. Oh, I can pick it up now? What? Yeah, not sure why I couldn't pick her up before, but I guess that's just art. Anyways, I smacked up a couple of metal nodes and then returned back to throw the metal into my forges that were all out of wood. Need to tame RG and a Dodic. I want to get a big old base going, you know? And we can start working on the dinos, artifacts, tributes. You know, basically the whole challenge pretty much. With my forges now refueled and cooking, I repaired my crossbow and made more arrows to turn into tranks, and I unlocked the stone structure engram. I then farmed up a simple RG trap and hopped on the back of Flameat to go out and find a high level bird. I soon spotted a level 135, but I didn't actually pursue that one as I know I could get better. I want higher than a 135. I'm greedy. And sure enough, I found a max level just off to the side of the hill. Boom, 150. It was stuck inside a rock though, so I had to clear the area of any aloes before I could try knocking it out. Oh, these aloes are so annoying. 145 right here. I think I might just tame that.
Hello.
Oh, hello. Yeah, a whole car on top of the hill was less than optimal, but dying was a risk that I was willing to take in order to tame this RG. So I quickly assembled the trap just below and flew over to tag the RG. Now, kiting it into the trap with a wyvern would be nearly impossible. So I flew back to the trap, hopped off, and I shot the RG again to get its attention and then have it fly straight in. Got it. Alright, where's my dragon? Boom. Alright, let's go get prime meat with this guy. Unfortunately, in ASE, there's no baby dinos to supply me with tons of prime meat. So instead, I had to drop a fellow RG and instill a more cannibalistic diet into this RG. The mountain was really cold throughout the night, so after feeding the bird, I decided to dip and return to the warmer climate of the island. I then waited for a yellow drop with a ring to land, but the loot inside was worthless. What wasn't worthless, on the other hand though, were these tech parasaurs. Basically walking supply drops of electronics and freedom. I do miss tech dinos on ASA. These free resources are really nice. As the sun started rising, I headed back towards the mountain. It's too cold. Oh, my RG is tamed. Let's go get it. I named him Thunderbird before stuffing him into my left pocket and picking up the trap. I then returned back home to throw Thunderbird back out and crafted an RG saddle for him. Alright, let's farm up some stone foundations, make a bunch more forges. We're gonna level up the RG and then mass farm metal. I need to feed my addiction. That being said, I constructed a little 2x2 platform next to my thatch hut, and I farmed up a bunch of forges which I lined up next to it. I then picked the walls up to my house and made an S+ Omni tool, and I used it to evenly distribute all the wood and metal into all the new forges. With my metal farming addiction absolutely itching to happen, I first went out to stock up on wood, and of course I did that by deforesting a part of the floating island. Anyways, now that they're sufficiently filled up, I cryoed up Thunderbird, and I went out to look for explore notes to level them up with. I wanted to get a couple more notes to even level more weight into Thunderbird, but I then flew into the redwoods and I got rudely interrupted by an aggressive tree kitty. Oh! Now, after a short wrestling session on the ground, the Thyla gave up and just ran away for some reason. So I hopped back on my RG and flew atop this mountain. Where's that explore note? Where are the explore notes? I just can't remember where any notes are at this point. While flying around, I remembered to turn my awesome spyglass on, which saved me from getting jumped by another tree kitty. Oh, okay, fly with the spyglass on, you can see the Thylas. Eventually, I found a note at this ruined bridge as well as an Alpha Carno. The problem was that it was a level 145 with an insane health pool of around 32,000 HP. I did, however, have my Wyvern on me, so I threw that out and started roasting it. I can kill this. Since Dino AI in Ark Survival Evolved is outdated, I found a little ledge that I could perch up on and spit fire on the Carno from above. And the more I lit the alpha sausage on fire, the more damage I caused with each consecutive breath. A lesser known fact about these Ember Crystal Wyverns. Anywho, the Carno was getting low, but I also managed to hit a Dimorph on accident, so now I had half the Redwoods birds on me as well. Switching to the RG. Boom. 48 levels. Yeah, killing that alpha sausage proved to be a more than worthwhile side quest than I'd first anticipated. I pumped up Thunderbird's weight all the way up to 3,000. Yes sir, dude, 3,000 weight. That's what I'm talking about. Boom, big metal farm coming up. With my metal senses twitching of pure excitement, I quickly flew back to base. I then deployed Thunderbird to go out on the first proper metal run. When I returned, I transferred over 11,000 metal into the forge. Now, to smelt up all of that, I would also need a ton of wood, and that reminded me of the chainsaw that I found in a supply drop. So I grabbed some oil and hide to make gasoline with. Give me this chainsaw. I'm gonna go find a ton of wood real quick for these forges. Base definitely needs some work. I'll make it look better, don't worry. With a truckload of wood now farmed in mere seconds, I split everything into the forges and started crafting up a bunch of tranks. Alright, time to go tame a Dodic now. Really need to work on this base. I'm not starting multiple boss armies with this as a base. This is bad. That being said, I headed out on Flameat to look for a decent level rock ball. On day 9, I flew over to the same mountain where I tamed Thunderbird, and I soon spotted the first Dodig, but it was only a level 25. Shortly after that though, I did find a level 135, so I abducted it and carried it all the way back home.
Hello gang, I am back.
Don't question that accent. For some reason, the Dodig decided to leap off into the water, so I had to use Flameat to bring him back up, something he really wasn't a fan of. A series of trank arrows later, he was slumped over, so I hopped on Perry to gather a few mayo berries and feed the sleeping ball. Then, while he was enjoying his meal, I unlocked a saddle engram and tried to craft one, only to be informed about my severe shortage of fiber. And I'm not about to go out and pick that by hand either, so of course I unlocked and crafted a sickle. Now, with the saddle crafted, I flew down to the beach on Flameat. I was here to gather a few organic resources such as hide, raw meat, and keratin from Master Oogway. Then, when I returned back, I threw the raw meat onto the campfire and devised a quick plan of action for the foreseeable future.
Waiting for this guy to tame so I can start building a magnificent base. By magnificent, I mean I'm probably building a box.
Yeah, the lack of building options in ASE compared to ASA would make building a good looking base way more challenging. So for this challenge, I had a bit of a different idea in mind. While waiting for the Dodig to tame, I started dropping a bunch of trees around the island with Flameat's wing flap attack, and that's actually really good at getting thatch. I then also grabbed my chainsaw to stock up on wood, and shortly after that the Dodig did wake up. I named him Rock, saddled him up, and wasted no time in putting him to work. I then grabbed a bunch of resources and I started crafting the foundations of my new home.
Yeah, dude, I'm just building a platform. I'm building this for efficiency, not looks. I've got 8 bosses to kill. I can't spend time on looks.
That being said, I started expanding on my existing platform on day 10, replacing the thatch foundations and picking up the walls as well. I then unlocked the stair engrams and farmed up a bit of fiber and crafted a bunch to surround the platform in them.
Island's pretty safe. It's literally only passive crystal wyverns and bears. And I haven't really seen a bear get over here, to be honest. So I'm not worried about defense at all.
One more thing I would definitely need though was a hatching platform. So I farmed up a bit of wood and made the foundations for that as well, and I brought the snap point out from the main platform. And of course, I didn't forget to add the stairs either.
Boom, put a generator and then air conditioners all along this. Okay, I think the strat is to take down the 3 normal island bosses first, since pretty sure I know I need them to summon the Megapithecus. What do I need for like the crystal wyvern? I believe that's on this island, isn't it?
But then I realized I would also need the island boss tributes for the overseer. As for the crystal wyvern, I just needed a bunch of artifacts, the alpha and regular crystal talons, and some primal crystal.
I need to figure out how to get beehives, dude, so I don't have to mass swarm honey in the redwoods. So I need to get crops growing as well. That's what I should make right now. I should make a greenhouse too.
Let's just say there's a lot of work ahead of me, and the sooner I started, the better. Getting a greenhouse set up so early would be the move, as it could produce all the crops that I would need down the line while I focused on other things. So I unlocked the greenhouse structure engrams and started crafting another platform.
Greenhouse is expensive. Ooh, okay, paste. Can farm the crystal and metal easily. Not worried about metal at all. Let's go get the crystal.
It was rather convenient that I lived on a floating crystal island where there was no shortage of that. So I grabbed Enket and we farmed a bunch of crystal just from a couple of nodes.
Alright, paste. Let's go start collecting taxes, I guess. Don't have a chemistry bench, so that's definitely going to be the best way for me to actually get paste right now.
Thankfully, the island has more than one river that houses beavers and their unpaid taxes, so of course I got to collecting. I even got to watch as they did their best to defend their hard work from an angry local.
Taxpayers are under attack. They gonna be able to kill it? Keep stunning them though.
And when they eventually took down the perpetrator, I swooped in and grabbed all the tax.
This should be enough paste for now.
On that note, I flew back to the floating island where I was greeted by a Fjorder yellow drop.
What? Why is the drop like this up here? That's interesting. That is horrible. I forgot how much better the drops are on ASA than they are on ASE.
Anyways, I loaded up my smithy and crafted most of the structures that I needed. To make one more greenhouse ceiling, I had to smack another crystal node, but once that was finally crafted, I got to work on actually building it.
I need more ceilings. I really messed up my words. Messed up my calculation.
After getting some more crystal and making the ceilings, I unlocked the stone water intake, tap, and pipe engrams.
I'm to farm a bunch of crop plots.
With 16 total crop plots made, I ran into the greenhouse to start placing them down, and that's when I realized I made a huge mistake.
Oh.
Yeah, the S plus crop plot snapped the foundations, which is really cool, but for some reason you can't stack them on top of one another. So I placed down all the S plus crop plots, and I then demolished them to get marginal returns on my resources. I then crafted the regular crop plots and stacked those on top of one another with no issue.
Boom. Not the most even stacks, but whatever.
Lastly, I crafted a few irrigation necessities such as an intake, a few pipes, and water taps, which I then brought into the greenhouse.
Boom. Everything's irrigated.
And at last but not least, the almighty fertilizer generator.
Now I need a toilet so I can poop glitch farm.
Since the S plus crop plots let me down, I decided to stick to a vanilla toilet as well. So I made an intersection pipe and connected that to the tap and finally placed down the majestic floating toilet. Now the fertilizer production ritual could commence by repeatedly hitting my head against the door frame to drain my stamina, forcing me to eat food and of course, defecate. With inhumane amounts of fertilizer produced in just a minute, I filled all the crop plots and hopped on Perry to go and get the different crop seeds. And I actually had to do quite a bit of lawn mowing in order to get enough of all the seeds. But I did eventually get all of them, so I seeded all the crop plots to kickstart my passive income business.
Got crops growing now. It's good. The greenhouse should be crazy. I want to make up a fabricator now, generator, and I want to hatch this wyvern egg.
The only thing I needed was some spark powder, so I made just that. Now to make the air conditioners, I would need some electronics, for which I would usually go out and collect silica pearls, but seeing as tech dinos do exist, I could just go out and kill those instead. And then polymer was another essential resource that I needed, but I could easily acquire it by, well, relieving certain creatures of their existence.
Let's go kill a mantis real quick.
Arriving at the desert on day 12, I checked out a red drop through my spyglass, and seeing the loot inside, I didn't even bother for waiting it to land. So I continued on the quest for what I came here to do, killing mantises, that is. Now with a bunch of polymer and chitin secured, I flew back home and crafted the S plus fabricator and placed it down next to my forges. I then unlocked the AC units engram and I crafted 5 of them. To power the hatchery, I unlocked the electrical cables and the outlet, and I made both of them as well as the generator.
Boom.
I grabbed the fertilized wyvern egg and threw it out the hatch, and I slightly adjusted the hatching speed in the settings so I wouldn't grow a beard while waiting.
This guy's got all the good stats.
And by some absolute miracle, it actually got all the good stats on the first successor of the family tree.
It got literally all the perfect stats. Okay. And oh, I know what I'm naming this thing. Boom.
Now looking at the maturation speed and imprint timer, I had a feeling that my settings were messed up, but for the time being, I waited to see if that was the case.
Getting a little too close.
When the timer ran out, I got hit by quite the ambitious craving of a primal crystal. So of course, I stuffed Night Fury into my pocket and threw her out again, which changed the imprint need, and I cuddled her for full imprint.
Boom.
Next up, I wanted to power my own base as well, so I made a second generator, cable, and outlet. I then grabbed some more oil and a hide to make gasoline as I was running a bit low. Now soon enough, Night Fury grew up, so I went out for a test drive.
Yeah, this thing is fast. I'm gonna go start taming boss fighters. Call me crazy. Do it. Do it. I dare you.
But first, I wanted to level up Night Fury. However, I couldn't really think of any easily accessible explorer notes just off the top of my head, so I kinda just flew around looking for one. I did end up grabbing a tech note on the RG mountain, shortly followed up by another note.
See if I can't find an alpha to kill or something now.
Flying through the rivers near the redwoods, I spotted a Spino, which also gives a decent amount of experience, so I dropped that as well as a Tech Rex that I spotted up ahead. One Spino later, my Wyvern was up to over 15,000 HP, over 2k stamina, and now I could start pumping all the remaining levels into melee.
This thing is a beast.
I continued flying around the map, killing Spinos and a Tech Stego before flying up the base to sort out my stuff. I also fixed my crossbow and crafted a ton of trank arrows in preparation for the boss fighter dino taming.
Okay, time to start looking for, Rexes and Theris. That's what I need for the first 3 bosses.
That being said, I quickly crafted a simple Theory trap with the ramps as well.
I'm gonna need a bunch of narcotics too if I find the Theory. Good thing I have a bunch because I'm rich like that. Alright, let's go start looking Rexes or Theris. Good Rexes or Theris, I should say.
Before taking off, I forced a bunch of raw meat down Night Fury's throat to heal her up a little bit. Meanwhile, my cat Maximus kept on assaulting me, so I had to check in on him as well.
Are you hungry? Is that the problem?
When I got back, I finished healing up the Wyvern, and as night took over the sky, I headed out to start the long process of looking for boss fighting dinos to tame. I also made sure to ban banish any low-level wannabe tames to allow their stronger counterparts to continue spawning in.
And get out of here. Oh, dude, my breath does so much damage.
Shortly after taking care of that Rex, I arrived to Theris heaven, but not a single one was worth taming.
Ton of Theris, but they all suck.
And to rub some salt in the wound, Ark decided to give up on me completely.
Oh, I think I crashed. Yeah.
After loading back in, I got yet another slap in my face. This time my settings got messed up, so I had to reassign everything back to normal.
Okay, Heyman, it's been about a month and a half since I've last played this because of the whole Aquatica catastrophe, but now we're back. I'm ready to beat the bosses. Got a lot to do before that though.
And that level 20 Rex that I clapped just a second ago, yeah, he's back to enjoying his life, munching on random passerbys. Of course though, I wouldn't let that slide due to its low level, so I sent it back to the afterlife where it belonged.
Definitely we're gonna need Theris, Rexes. I'll probably just go for Rexes instead of Megatheriums. I don't know, maybe I will take Megatheriums.
With high level dinos being as rare as they are right now, I probably would need to prioritize a good Rex army before Megatherium, since Rexes could actually carry me through a multitude of bosses opposed to just the Broodmother.
I'd go for Rexes first, those will be pretty easy to find.
So on that note, I flew over to one of the mountains where I was hoping to find more Rexes, but instead I found a giant red sausage.
It's not a Rex.
God damn it, Gump! You're a goddamn genius!
But then a 130 popped out of nowhere, and it was pretty close to being good, but I think I can still find a better one. So I packed it up and grabbed the arms for tribute and took off to continue looking. I then ran straight into another level 130 fighting a Textego, so of course I had to intervene.
Give me them resources, boy. I need them more than you. Not having too much luck so far. Just know I can do better than a 130. Oh, what was that?
Hello there.
Hey there.
Going over to the volcano, I found another decent Rex, a level 135 to be exact.
See, that's not bad.
So I kept that in mind and continued circling the volcano. Then sure enough, I found a level 145 Rex straight away, but I didn't really want to start celebrating yet, as when I looked at its stats, both the melee and the health were worse than the 135.
That 145 is terrible. I'm gonna go kill this 145. It is awful.
As I was flying over, I spotted yet another Rex. This one was a level 130 with slightly better health and the same melee.
This 130 Rex isn't that bad.
That 145 had absolutely no business being so trash. So the only logical conclusion to its miserable existence would of course be death. Anyways, I continued looking around while keeping that 130 in mind. Flying down to the beach between the volcano and redwoods, I spotted a level 130 Theory with similar stats, and a level 120 Tech Rex, which I killed.
Tech Rexes could be crazy. If I get like a level 186, just the odds of getting something like that spawn is so incredibly low. It's just not even worth it. Alright, let's go back to base, make a better Rex trap, and we'll go from there. Probably tame that 130 with over 6,000 health, 200% melee. Sounds like a plan.
I made a quick stop in the desert by a red drop with a ring, but the loot inside didn't match the temptation caused by the quality of the drop. In other words, the items inside were utter garbage. I flew down to a blue drop with a ring, and even that had better loot.
Oh, let's chill. Jeez, got bodied. That is a crazy whip.
Anyways, I flew back home to get my stuff sorted out, my flak repaired, and I hopped on Thunderbird to go out and farm up a few dino gates. I also made a few large bear traps to make the process easier while looking at Dodo decks to see how many tranks I would actually need.
Dodo Dex is saying 87 for body shots, so honestly, I'm probably gonna make some more.
I had loads of narcotics ready, so I made more trank arrows and I headed out to find that 130 Rex. Back at the volcano, I was greeted by what looked to be a red drop coming down, but it turned out to be a purple one instead.
That's a purple drop. I don't know, after the Aquatica video, I've been getting a lot of allegations that I'm colorblind. Maybe it's true.
Anywho, I found that 130 Rex again, but it wasn't in the friendliest of areas, so I had to do a little bit of pest control first.
Let's clear some of these nuisances. Oh, act like I said that word right, please.
I killed the Kentros as well before looking around to see where I could even construct the trap. I didn't want to build it inside the jungle due to Ark Survival Evolved pathfinding, but the alternatives were in the freezing snow and, well, even more trees literally everywhere.
I don't know, I might have to tame it in the forest. This is looking pretty dire.
So on the very early morning of day 16, I landed behind the Rex ready to slap down the trap, but apparently my guy had a mobility impaired handicap.
Okay, so one of my keys just doesn't work. Yeah, strafe left. What?
Somehow that key got unbound, but I fixed it and now I was sitting on the wyvern with the Rex biting its butt. So to make the most out of this situation, I tanked a few Rex bites while trying to gate the Rex in. However, I couldn't quite reach behind it to place the gate, so I needed a change of plans. And that change had to come quick as a bunch of different things started going wrong. First of all, I couldn't press E in my inventory to equip things even though my key was bound correctly. And second, I was actively freezing to death, which I didn't even notice until my bone snapped, so now I have exactly 20 seconds left to live.
Oh, I gotta get out of here. I didn't even notice. Holy Bob move.
After that unfortunate sequence of events, I hopped on Flamette and flew back out to get my stuff.
My wyvern's kind of protecting my body.
I rekitted and stuffed Flamette into my pocket before flying back out to the Rex. I placed the third gate down on my trap and then set the bear trap down. I then hopped back on Night Fury to try and kite the Rex in.
Come on. Really?
Since it had the turn-in radius of a semi-truck, I picked up one gate and tried to get it in again.
Oh my god, how do you walk around that? You are actually digging in me so hard.
The cold weather was also not helping out as I was still freezing to death. Landing just a bit higher up on the mountain made it bearable, so I shot a couple of tranks at the Rex from up here. Then when it got close, I flew up again and then reconstructed the trap. This time the Rex walked right in, but the bear trap didn't go off for some reason.
He's on it. It won't clamp down.
However, I was still able to slap the last gate down, but there was also a giant hole on the other side that needed fixing. So I pulled out my pickup gun to quickly replace that side of the gates.
Got it. Yeah, you are mine. Boom. Okay, it's out.
Now it was time to source some prime meat from a generous donator. There were plenty of RGs flying around the volcano, so I clapped up one of them and brought the prime meat back to feed the Rex. I was gonna wait around for the Rex and watch it tame, but temperatures dropped and I started freezing again, so I was forced to dip.
Man, I need some fur. I'm gonna go farm that.
I flew over to the snowy area between the volcano and mountains where I packed up a Yudi and a woolly rhino, giving me all the pelt that I would need. Back at the crib on day 17, I threw a bunch of stuff into my smithy and I made a set of fur to keep me warm out there. Then looking through my forges, I noticed they had plenty of fuel but almost no metal to actively cook. So I had to fix that immediately. I scooped up Anket and I flew over to farm the nodes near my base. Now with that little farming session out of the way, I could head back out to check on the Rex. The prime meat in its inventory was close to spoiling, so I hopped back on Night Fury to go out and get some more from the local birds.
Rex is tamed. It's not bad by any means. Not bad.
It definitely could have been much better though. Anyways, I did have to tame a female now, so I got to work on farming up arrows and looting a useless green drop.
I don't know, after the Aquatica video, I've been getting a lot of allegations that I'm colorblind.
It's not easy being green.
As I headed out, I spotted a tech stego below, so of course I had to put it down for the free dose of freedom, liquid, and electronics. Now flying into the redwoods, I was about just a hair away from getting absolutely sniped out of the sky by a Thyla.
Oh! Life just flashed before my eyes.
Then when I arrived back at base, I threw out the Rex and renamed it according to its stats. On day 18, I made an extra crossbow just to make sure that my main one wouldn't break on me while tranking out a Rex, as that was a slight concern given how many arrows you actually need to knock out a Rex.
Hey, back to looking for a female Rex now. Kinda forgot Carno Island exists. Let me go out there. Bet I can find a good Rex out there.
So I flew over to the island, but then an OSD over at the extinction side caught my attention.
OSCs are probably worth doing. I could get saddle blueprints.
Anywho, I opened up a green drop that was chilling in the middle of Carno Island. Back to Rexes though. I spotted two females straight away, but both of them sucked so hard that they had to be put down. Now, seeing no more Rexes around, I headed back to the mainland where I stopped by the small pond that's usually occupied by my good old friends.
Taxpayers.
I was about to go and claim my fair share of pace until a whole Sarco jumped in my face. Thankfully, the beavers handled it though, so I could thank them by freeing them of their burdens. Anywho, I flew back over to the volcano and circled it a couple of times before spotting a female level 135 Rex.
Female 135. It's not good, any means. I don't know though, I got so many bosses to kill.
Maybe the after tame stats could save it though, and there's really only one way to find out, so that's by taming it of course. So I constructed the trap just below and I shot a trank arrow at it to get it to follow me.
Hello. Come on, right in. This could be so easy. Oh yeah. Oh! In the trap, please?
Now at the last gate place, I could put my fur on to stay warm and perch up on a rock to start tranking it. Now, with just a fraction of my first crossbow's durability left, the Rex went to sleep. On day 19, I flew up to gather a bit of prime meat from the local Allosaurus population and then fed the Rex.
I'm gonna wait around for this to tame now.
Once it woke up, it had 27 points both in the health and melee, meaning it wasn't as good as the first Rex I tamed.
We'll see what a fully breeded imprinted one comes out as.
So I flew back to base and threw out the female next to the male, and I got them breeding.
Little terminal. I think that I can get that to pick up eggs for me. Options, automation. Yeah, fertilize egg collection.
With the first egg on its way, I then sorted out my inventory. When the egg dropped, I grabbed some raw meat and then threw it out of the hatchery just for it to vanish into thin air.
Oh wait, did this pick it back up?
I threw it out on the back side of the hatchery this time, hoping that it would be out of range of the terminal, but it got snatched once again.
Alright, I need to move this farther away.
So I replaced the terminal closer to the water and then finally threw out the egg again, and this time it didn't vanish.
Okay, I think I found the sweet spot.
So a little bit of waiting around later, the first baby Rex popped out, but unfortunately it didn't get the right stats, so of course it had to go. On day 20, the second egg hatched, but the stats were less than ideal, as you can imagine.
Yep, bad.
Egg number 3 also produced a failure that I had to put down, but it was not nearly as disappointing as this yellow drop that I opened. When I returned back, egg number 4 was waiting for me, so I threw it out the hatchery and then waited.
Oh my goodness, this is killing me.
The next egg I put right back into the terminal since I wanted to wait for a few more before I hatched them up. So for the time being, I picked up Egghead and just farmed some metal. Then once I was done satisfying my addiction, I threw out a couple of eggs and waited for them to hatch. Now one of the babies finally popped out as a perfect female, so it would get to live. As for the other child, however, the same cannot be said. So I disabled mating on the parents and ate one of their eggs and then unlocked the Rex saddle engram. I crafted a couple of them on day 21 to make moving the big Rexes easier. I then slapped on one of the saddles on the female and I moved it aside. I also whistled the new female to follow me for imprint as I wanted to see the stats once fully imprinted.
It's not terrible. I don't know, we'll see how it is when it's fully leveled.
Also, I did say I would be living on just a few foundations and have a more practical and functional base, but instead, honestly, I'm already getting tired of that.
Okay, I'm refusing just to have a platform base this time. I'm going to have a good base. It's been decided, I just don't know how I want to build it yet.
I headed over to the engram page to unlock the wooden pillar and ceiling engrams, and then went over to farm up fiber for them.
I need to make a bunch of ceilings now. Oh, my Rex is grown as well. Gonna go on like a huge leveling spree. Oh, you know, let me just breed up baby Rexes to kill. That's how we'll get a bunch of XP on this guy. And then we'll see what stats are looking like. These things gotta be strong. They wanna kill the bosses that I need to kill.
So with the Rexes breeding again, I can continue my base renovations. I chopped down a few trees for a bunch of wood, and I made 20 ceilings to cover my base with.
I think I'm gonna do greenhouse ceilings. Hey, how are my crops doing? Phenomenal. I think I'm gonna do greenhouse ceilings to keep this natural light. This area is really cool.
To make a bunch of greenhouse ceilings, I'd obviously need a lot of crystal as well as metal, which I had plenty of. And since I lived on a floating crystal island, getting a ton of metal was also a breeze.
I mean, this definitely looks better so far, and then I want to have some other like littler sections that branch off of this eventually. Building is so much better on ASA.
On day 22, I brought the old female Rex over to speed up the egg production since these Rexes would be sacrificed anyway. I also renamed the new female to Perfect F, not to mix up the two. I then made a couple of stone foundations which I placed connecting my main base platform to the greenhouse door.
Can I make a chemistry bench? That would make narcotic farming a lot easier. Paste, poly. Oh, I have all the electronics. I can do all this then. Let me get the crystal. Okay, I can do all that.
I hopped on Thunderbird and I grabbed Inkhead to go out and smack up another couple of crystals. Then back at base, I made 50 spark powder, so now I just needed polymer and paste. So I flew down to the island's rivers where I quickly spotted an unattended beaver dam that I could loot.
Boom, taxes.
And during my getaway, I spotted another generous donation of electronics in the form of a tech parasaur.
Hello. I like food resources as well.
My next stop was at the swamp by the redwoods. I was not sure whether I could find any beaver dams here though.
Are there any taxpayers in this swamp? Can't remember. In my first 100 days ever, Ark 100 days ever on the channel, I built here. I decided to build my base in the swamp. I don't know what 14-year-old Granty was thinking. I don't know. He was a different breed though.
After looting that dam, I landed by yet another tech parasaur. I also grabbed my free electronics and I beelined it straight to a blue drop which I spotted in the redwoods. Flying down the river between the mountains and redwoods, I clapped yet another tech parasaur, but more importantly, I saw a pair of ghillie gauntlets and a green drop up ahead.
Ooh, ghillie gauntlets? Crafted already?
Okay, I know what you guys are thinking. That drop is literally not green. I know, I'm just joking. I mean, we can all clearly tell that that drop is purple.
Those are nice.
Soon after that, I came across another beaver dam, which I of course looted. Now I just needed to get the polymer.
145 Megatherium? I might have to tame that.
Anywho, I stopped by a red drop with a ring in the desert, and inside I found a crafted ascendant compound bow with over 300 damage. Now that could actually come in clutch when it's time to hit the caves for artifacts. Flying over to the backside of the desert though, there was a blue drop with a ring, and that had an ascendant whip inside just like last time. That's not why I'm here though. I need polymer. Thankfully, I could get some from these mantises that were just hanging out in the ocean for some reason.
That's gotta be enough polymer.
On that note, I headed back to base and loaded up the fabricator, and I made a chemistry bench. I did have a decent amount of spoiled meat ready to convert, but the same could not be said about the narco berries, so I had to hop on Perry and do the annual lawn mowing.
Definitely need a Bronto for a berry harvester. A bunch more narcotics crafting. How many Rex eggs do I have? Not a ton, not gonna lie.
One more thing that I would need to maximize the leveling efficiency was of course a Cody. So I grabbed my Mayho berries from Perry and I headed out to go and find one.
Dude, all the Lystras. All the Codys, as some would say. I'll take the 140.
2 feeds later, the level 140 Cody was mine.
Cody. You know.
So I brought Cody back home and I grabbed all the eggs that my Rexes produce, so I could go and commit a multitude of crimes against Mother Nature. The first few babies gave the Rex 36 levels, so I could easily bring up the HP to around 40k, but the melee damage was still lacking, so it needed more leveling.
50k health. I mean, it's strong, don't get me wrong, but it's not crazy strong.
I waddled over to kill a wild bear for raw meat, and then I brought the Rex back over to heal. I then hopped on my Wyvern to go out and collect more raw meat, since healing up 50,000 points of HP would take a solid minute, as well as a lot of food. Back at base, I transferred all that raw meat over to the Rex, and I spent a couple of minutes healing it up.
Okay, I'm gonna leave these two breeding, start my boss line. We'll see how these handle the alpha Megapithecus. If I can get good saddles, I'm chilling.
I also unlocked the metal arrow engram. I then crafted a few so I could test out my new piece of 20th century primitive technology. Now that I had the Rexes sorted out, I could start working towards getting all the tributes for the monkey boss fight. But for that, I would need a good caving creature. Obviously, I'm gonna go for a Thyla, so I grabbed up a simple trap and made some arrows, which I then turned into tranks and headed out into the redwoods. The first and second tree kitty that I spotted were both level 50s, and there was a third one that was a level 95, and I watched that pounce onto something, and even that was a bit too low of a level, so I continued flying around until I spotted this level 135 male.
Oh, 25 points in melee? I'm taming that. Can I pick this up? Oh, I can!
Being able to carry this made the whole taming process way easier, so I carried the kitty all the way back to my home island. Then after dropping it off, I quickly constructed the trap and I took off to go grab it again.
Oh,
That's if the Thyla didn't jump straight down into the ocean.
he's just drowning himself.
Yeah, for some reason, it didn't swim back up to the surface automatically, so I had to shoot it. Although jumping off might have not been the best idea, as I couldn't get back on my Wyvern and the tree kitty was heading straight towards me.
This isn't good at all. This is not. Can you attack underwater? I don't think it can.
Thankfully though, its AI completely broke in the water, so I was able to get back on my Wyvern and fly over to a nearby beach and lay a few shots down into it while it followed me. From there, I scooped it back up and brought it back into the trap on the first try. Now with the Thyla unconscious, I unlocked the industrial grill and quickly crafted one, and I then went out to get prime meat. When I got back, I slapped down the grill next to my smithy. I then threw all the meat onto it and I fed the cat some narcotics to keep it snoozing. I also unlocked and crafted a saddle for it while it was taming. Now since it was close to waking up, I picked up the trap and I waited. It finally tamed on the morning of day 25.
Kitty.
Kitty would definitely need a bit of power leveling so he'd be ready to take on the various caves of the island. And that's why I enabled mating on the old female Rex again.
Bet you I could get... From memory, I gotta get the Brute.
That's where my good friend Google comes in. I needed the artifact of the Brute, Devourer, and the Pack. Anyways, I grabbed 6 fertilized Rex eggs and I threw them out at the hatchery. These would be boss Rexes, so I hopped on the Wyvern again and flew down to gather raw meat for them, by of course depleting the lives of innocent creatures. Then when I returned back, I claimed all the baby Rexes and whistled them away from the hatchery before unlocking and farming up a feeding trough.
Wait, don't I have a chainsaw?
I did in fact own a chainsaw, so I grabbed it and stocked up on the wood in seconds. I then crafted and placed down the trough at the hatchery and filled it up with the meat, and I headed out to get more as the babies were just absolutely shredding through it.
Go farm some more before they want imprints.
When I returned back, I threw some of it on the grill and the rest went straight into the trough. Now it was time to get their imprints sorted. One of the Rexes wanted meat jerky, so I had the good old cryo and then throw it back out trick to change its craving. With some of the Rexes, it took more than one cryo and rethrow before they lowered their standards, but I got all of them imprinted in the end so I could start hatching the next batch. These baby Rexes wouldn't be as lucky though, as I needed to kill them for XP to level up Kitty. I got its health up to just above 12,000 and the rest of the points went straight in the melee. Now before heading out, I made a few grapples as those are essential for caving and Ark. I then cryoed up Kitty and headed out to get my first artifact, which would happen to be the artifact of the pack. I entered the cave on day 26, but I had to turn around and go back home because I was freezing to death inside and I didn't bring my fur drip.
Oh, it's cold. It's cold. Hold up, I gotta go get fur.
While at base, I moved the old female Rex out of the way again, and I brought the now fully grown female Rexes over to form a small breeding circle.
Let's move the females over here, just, speed up egg production.
I then flew back over to the cave and equipped the fur and then headed inside.
Alright, let's try this again.
Soon, I came upon the first opposition in the form of a spider, so I whipped out my bow and shot it in the face. And the locals clearly didn't like my introduction, seeing as a whole gang of bats assaulted me right after that.
This thing is strong, but these bats are super strong. Oh lord.
And there were plenty of other nasties to take out before I could continue.
I am not Hawkeye. Maybe I am, I don't know.
The bow was actually really clutch though, as I could just back up and clap any ops obstructing my space. I then threw out the Thyla and headed deeper into the cave. I also grabbed an explorer note while down here to make Kitty that much stronger.
Oh, make that lady shut up.
Now, as I approached the big open room with the ruins, I literally got jumped by a group of snakes falling from the ceiling.
Whoa.
Snake.
Anyways, from here, I could grapple up to this tiny crack in the wall that actually led straight to the artifact room.
Nothing else down here?
The answer to that question soon presented itself though.
Oh! Spoke too soon. Oh my gosh, dude. They're coming out from everywhere.
After getting rid of those Sarcos, I snagged the artifact and headed right out of there. Going up the ruins, I picked up another explorer note as well as a red drop that had absolutely nothing of use inside. Now, on my way out, my Thyla's fat butt got stuck in a corridor, so I had to cryo it and continue on foot.
Oh. Dude was waiting for me.
My torpor was rising a bit much though, so I got worried as I headed for the exit of the cave. Thankfully though, I'm him and I'm built different, so a couple of spider bites aren't going to break me.
I don't pass out, I'm too tough for that.
Now, on my way back to base, I spotted a low-level Bronto down on the beach, which in other words is just a free pile of raw meat, so I packed it up and flew home.
Okay, I want to make another enclosure type thing for artifact pedestals, because there's going to be a lot of artifacts I'm going to have to get.
It was also now that I realized the Rexes that I brought over to the mail weren't even breeding.
Bruh, I am slow. I do actually want to move these Rexes though.
I brought them over to the big crystal cave thing instead. On day 27, I picked the soul terminal up as well, and I moved the last two Rexes.
Oh, those are silica pearls in my water right there. Hold up, that's so clutch.
Anyways, I threw out the next batch of boss Rexes and I waited for them to hatch.
I want to get my whole boss Rex army hatched, leveled as soon as possible so they have time to heal.
I also wanted to start building the artifact pedestal extension to my base, but that had to wait as my feeding trough was looking rather empty and I didn't want my Rexes starving.
Gotta get these guys more food before I start building this artifact thing. Oh, nice.
There was some raw meat on the wyverns, so I threw that in for them to munch on for now while I went out to get more. And when I returned, the trough was completely drained as I expected, so I filled it back up and I actually got to imprinting the Rexes.
I think I'm gonna have the artifact platform stray out over here. Just so, I don't really want the base or like the base being super symmetrical. I think it looks a little tacky.
I went out to get some more wood to craft the rest of the foundations just for my game to freeze and crash out of nowhere.
Dude.
I got rolled back slightly, so I had to replace the first few foundations, then farm the stone and wood again. I also made the greenhouse ceilings to keep the style consistent across platforms. However, I may have crafted more than I needed.
Oh, I do not need that many. I'm gonna need to go out and get obsidian.
I cryo Thunderbird and Inkhead so I could fly around looking for obsidian quicker. But before heading out, I leveled up my Rexes and I actually found a raw meat on the perfect F. So I grabbed all that and put it into the trough. I also brought the newly grown females over to the rest and I got them all breeding again.
Alright, let's go find a big deposit of obsidian, hopefully nearby.
Anyways, I then hopped on Night Fury and headed out, quickly stopping by a yellow drop on my island first though. Inside, I found a goated Ascendant Longneck blueprint. Unfortunately though, it's slightly out of my budget at the moment.
Oh, expensive.
Anywho, while flying around, I spotted a tech parasaur running for its life, so I turned it into ash and collected the electronics. Now, I did know that the volcano had plenty of obsidian around, I just didn't really want to fly back to base on an RG.
I wonder if this giant floating island over here has obsidian.
So I flew up to said giant floating island. There was an oddly tech cave looking entrance to a small cave on top, so I flew in to check it out.
That goes to the lunar biome. That goes to Eden. That goes to Rocco's garden. I'm not sure. I'm just gonna farm obsidian how I know how. Should be plenty in the volcano for me to get.
So it looked like I had no other option but to fly up to the top of the volcano, cryo the wyvern, and throw a thunderbird and a cat.
Might as well just farm a lot of obsidian while I'm here.
Thankfully, I wasn't burning alive though, so I could stick around for a while and get all the obsidian in the world. Now, with exactly 1800 obsidian gathered, I started heading back home. I arrived at the crib on the sunrise of day 29. I then unlocked the artifact pedestal engram, and I made 8 of them for now. And of course, I put the first artifact up for display. Also, all the Rexes were now fully grown, so I could start moving them over to the rest, but I wanted to make a few more saddles for that, so I first gathered a bit of fiber, then made 3. I also leveled up the health on one of the Rexes a bit before bringing them all over to form a new line. My breeding circle had been hard at work, and looking into the soul terminal, I had a surplus of eggs ready to be thrown out. But I only grabbed 3 for now, as that's all I would need to get a full army, and I threw them out to incubate. Now, one of the eggs actually produced triplets, but seeing as I already had more than enough Rexes, you all probably know what happened to the other 2. Anywho, I transferred the rest of the obsidian from my RG into the fabricator, and I headed out to the desert to find and kill a few mantises since I wanted to make a fridge to store my spoilables. When I returned on day 30, I loaded up the fabricator and I made said fridge. I then placed it just by the grill and I loaded up some meat and narcoberry. Now, going back to check on my Rexes, they were almost ready for their imprints, so I waited around until the timer hit 0. I also brought 2 of the grown females over to speed up my egg production even further, as I would be needing a lot of them very soon to power level my army.
Alright, so I've got all my boss Rexes raised, now they just need to be leveled.
That being said, I grabbed a bunch of fertilized eggs and threw them out to hatch, and the rest of the leveling process should be pretty familiar to y'all by now. The mass production and simultaneous extermination of baby Rexes and the name of progress continued into day 31. I was getting close to around 1000 melee damage on the Rexes, which was decent but definitely could have been better. So I decided to pause for a minute and actually go see what kind of damage numbers we're working with.
I want to see how much damage this Rex does. Like, I think if I can get good saddles for these, I'm chilling easily. But I think the best way to do that is OSDs. I don't know. I gotta look up the loot tables. But for that, probably gonna want to tame the Giga. Good Giga.
Back to my Rex though, one bite was dealing 745 damage, so a bit less than ideal. While flying back to base on day 32, I was reminded of a small honey cave located literally 60 feet away from my base that was full of polymer.
Oh wait, I forgot about this. I can just get polymer in here. I don't need to keep killing mantises.
Anyways, I brought the Rex back into the breeding circle, and while waiting for more eggs, I actually wanted to go out and get the second artifact for the monkey boss. I cryoed up Kitty and hopped on the wyvern to fly over to the Carno cave housing the artifact of the devourer. As per usual, I got slightly distracted by a yellow drop though, but opening it was actually worthwhile as I found a decent crossbow blueprint inside. And there was also another OSD in the Wasteland extension, but this time it was a purple OSD, which I definitely didn't have any capacity to complete. So of course, I bid it to get it started and despawned it. Anyways, going into the actual cave, I got followed in by a saber-toothed tiger, so I force-fed it a couple of metal arrows. Now, making my way down through the moon pool and into the main hall of the cave, I was met with quite the opposition.
Oh my god.
I slowly backed up and threw out Kitty underwater, then hopped on and resurfaced to get rid of all the bats. And by some miracle, I didn't even get rabies, so I was good to head straight down. I leaped off onto these big mushrooms and down onto the actual path where a blue cave drop was waiting for me with literal garbage inside. Genuinely, who would ever get this far into the Carno cave and be in need of a cloth chest blueprint and a wooden club? Nonsense aside, I jumped down onto a ledge just above the ruins where I picked up another explorer note. And finally, I landed at the bottom of the cave and snagged up an artifact and braced for the horde of cave creatures that was about to assault me. Since Thylas are goated creatures, I climbed right back up to the top of the cave and ran outside and headed home with a second artifact secured. And yeah, I did stop by to pick up the purple drop that was right in the middle of the island, but the loot was not worth mentioning. Now back at base, I put the new artifact of the Devourer up for display, and I got right back to leveling up my Rexes. That is until a red drop appeared nearby, so I quickly hopped on my Wyvern to go see what's inside. It landed on day 33, so I took everything inside, but I was mainly interested in the flak helmet blueprint. Anywho, I can now go to actually leveling up the Rexes. And finally, on day 34, I was down to leveling up the last Rex.
Last Rex. Alright, boom, dude. Finally done leveling Rexes.
I still had to do one more thing before leaving them all to heal up, and that's of course to fill up the feeding trough again, since they were absolutely shredding through the supply now. But before flying back down to the mainland for the usual killing spree, I stopped by a yellow drop which had an insane ascendant sickle inside, something I could actually put to good use. Very soon, that is. Anyways, I cryoed up the Wyvern at the beach since I was going to kill a few things on the back of my Rex. But then a pesky little rascal decided to rob me in broad daylight.
Oh, really? Let's test out this new sickle. Too bad.
With my property restored, I could actually get on with the meat run. I was also keeping the hide, which I would need copious amounts of later on when crafting all the saddles. That's if I can find a good saddle blueprint, of course. On day 35, while doing my usual killing, I spotted a level 145 Theris in the distance.
Ooh, nothing crazy, but I might have to tame it just because. It's 145.
The stats were mid at best, but there was still a slight chance that it would get fixed after taming. So I kept that in mind as I continued shredding through random creatures. And after dropping a couple of Brontos, I figured I had enough meat and hide, so I threw my Wyvern back out and flew home. Now with the trough refilled again, I could continue doing a few side quests, such as looking up the drop rate for the Rex saddle blueprint.
Okay, so I've been looking in anything, any OSD besides the blue ones have a chance to drop Rex saddles. I think OSD are definitely my best bets for saddles. So for that, I'd prefer to just tame a Giga. It'll just mop through everything.
While on the topic of side quests, I spotted something which I can never pass up on in the water.
Taxpayers.
Anyways, as I was saying, I wanted to tame a Giga next so I could actually do OSDs. And thanks to some divine intervention from the Ark gods themselves, the first mountain I flew to actually had a level 145 male Giga just straight chilling.
Oh, holy torpor though.
Now, if you guys remember from a few days ago, I actually found a really good Ascendant long neck blueprint a while back, but it's really expensive. However, seeing the enormous Giga's torpor pool, I figured it would actually be a good idea to craft regardless, since I am pretty rich in the metal department anyways. So when I returned back to base, I had to look into the smithy to see exactly how much metal I'd have to say goodbye to.
Oh, it's even more expensive than I remember.
But the alternative to crafting this was to of course spend half a decade mindlessly shooting weak trank arrows into that Giga.
No way I want to tame a Giga the normal way. I have all the metal. Okay, let's do another metal and wood run. Need more metal smelting. I can craft this. More metal smelting.
I went out to get a little more wood for the long neck rifle on day 36.
Now I need stuff for a mind wipe because I'm gonna make this thing as strong as I can.
So I unlocked the S+ cooking pot and farmed up one and placed it next to the greenhouse. So to knock two things off the list, I now of course had to mow the lawn a bit with Perry. Next up, the spark powder. I grabbed Anket and I smacked up a few rocks, and then brought all the farm back into the chemistry bench, and I cooked up the few stimulants that I needed. Now the last thing I needed was the cooked prime meat, so I hopped on Night Fury and flew down to source some of that from the locals. And soon I got all the prime cooked that I needed, so I've made the first mind wipe tonic. And as I was brewing the second tonic, one of my mayho berries actually ended up spoiling, canceling the process and literally voiding the rest of the resources.
Really? The mayho berry? Dude.
Anywho, once it finally finished cooking, I grabbed both of them and I pulled all the resources over to the smithy.
Alright, let's craft this.
I then proceeded to give myself carpal tunnel, clicking away at the crafting skill, and it was mostly in vain as the long neck only came out with around a 12% bonus.
Oh my god, that's not that good.
It was still a decent long neck overall though, and would definitely do the job, so I reset my stats back to normal and unlocked a few necessary engrams to make the trank darts. I then farmed up even more spark powder with Anket and Thunderbird. I then transferred a ton of charcoal that's been piling up in my forges over to the chemistry bench, and I started cooking the gunpowder as well as the bullets themselves. Now to turn that into darts, I needed more narcotics, so of course I grabbed a bunch of raw meat from my trough and split that all up to spoil.
I'm gonna start mass farming narcotics. works.
I picked up Harry with Night Fury on day 37 and I brought him down to the forest for yet another lawn mowing session. I did have to relocate though, as there was a whole alpha raptor nearby and I didn't feel like getting my trusty lawnmower killed. But even at a new spot, I wasn't able to farm in peace as I got jumped by a couple of dinos that I domed instantly. However, those weren't as big as a problem as the raptors that pulled up next though.
Oh.
Anywho, after piecing those up, I farmed up a few metric tons of narcoberries and headed back up the base. I then turned that into a bunch of trank darts. I kept some of course to keep the Giga asleep since they wake up in seconds. Another thing I would need to make before heading over was the trap, consisting of 4 metal dino gates and a large bear trap. So I unlocked the gateway engram and crafted 4 as well as a couple of bear traps.
Surely that's enough to knock it out. Alright, let's go do this.
I then loaded up my new firearm and hopped on Night Fury to fly over to the mountain where I saw that level 145 Giga. I then landed a safe distance away and roasted a random bystander. After that, I placed down my gates as well as the 2 bear traps. Now with everything prepared and set, I flew over to introduce myself to the Giga and lead it straight into the trap on the first try.
Oh, it switched on the dimorph last second. Are you kidding? That would have been so butter.
Since it wasn't butter, I had to try again. I picked the back gate up in both of the bear traps and I replaced everything facing the Giga again. Now going over to grab the Giga's attention, I got Night Fury's tail bit off.
Oh, that does not feel good. What did you see? That dimorph's gonna screw me over again. There's no way you just walked around it.
Finally, on day 38, I got the Giga to slowly walk into the trap, but for some reason, it didn't trigger either of the bear traps that I set.
How's it not in the bear trap? What? This is so annoying.
Anyways, I then got it into the trap on the first try.
You want a bigger turning radius, buddy? Got it.
I placed the last gate down, locking it in and making it ready to knock out, or that's what I thought at least. That's when the Giga decided to ignore every law of 3-dimensional geometry.
Oh, are you kidding? How did that not have it? Are you kidding? What?
To make matters worse, the Giga killed something on top of my trap and was stuck trying to eat its corpse. Now this wouldn't be much of a problem if I didn't have to get close to the trap to pick up one of my gates. Thanks to its broken AI, I was able to fly around behind it while it was still inside the trap and place down the gate behind it again.
Okay. It's gotta be in, right?
I then flew around to the back and shot a dart into its butt to see if it would run out of it again, but it was persistent on biting the gates, so I just got to tranking it out. I did get slightly interrupted by Tech-Rex pulling up of all things, and the Giga lost about 1,000 torpor in the few seconds that it took me to kill it.
Dude, it drained so quick.
I quickly grabbed some prime meat from the Wyvern and rushed to feed the Giga some narcotics.
I'm gonna go get some newer prime meat just in case.
I also had to be careful with things like sabers roaming the area. The last thing I was needed for one to run up on me while I'm feeding the Giga.
Yup, knew that was gonna happen.
And as you might have guessed, I had to stick around and babysit the Giga, feeding it narcotics every now and then just to make sure that it didn't drain its entire torpor pool in like 3 seconds. I renamed it according to its stats and then shoved it into my pocket.
Okay, I think this Giga actually came out. Oh my god, it came out alright. Yeah, 35 points in melee. That's not bad. I just named it its stats just in case I find a female that I can breed it with. But I'm definitely leveling this thing straight away. Some OSDs. Let's go back to base, make it a saddle, do some leveling. You know, maybe a little test drive, meat run, hide farm. I think it's just mandatory.
One thing I tried while flying back home was to pick up a Theris with my Wyvern, but the tickle chickens were just a bit too fat to carry. So anyways, back at the crib, I sorted out my stuff and threw out the Giga. I then got some fiber with the new sickle before crafting a new saddle for it to start the leveling process. On day 40, I unlocked the industrial cooker engram so I could start mass producing medical brews. I would need those eventually for the bosses, but they would also come in really handy when doing OSDs, as the corrupted Wyvern's fire breath can light you on fire even when you're mounted.
Beast and Poly. Okay, I can do that.
I hopped on Thunderbird and I flew over to that honey cave on my island. Inside, I threw out my Dodic and smacked up one of the hives, which obviously angered all the bees.
Oh,
Luckily though, my compound bow could one-tap all of them and I could get back to smacking up hives. I also spotted a cave drop deeper inside, so I hopped off for a second and made my way over to get it.
this place is huge. What?
The loot inside was garbage though, so I grappled back to my Doed and took out any bees trying to intervene. I then cryoed them up and flew back home since I already had a bunch of poly.
Now let's go get paste. Wait, I've got chitin stone. Can I just make paste?
I threw all my chitin into the chemistry bench and I hopped on rock once again to get some stone real quick. That is, until I turned back around to find a bag on the ground already full of stone. With the paste cooked up, I crafted the industrial cooker. I then extended my irrigation pipe outside the greenhouse with some flexible pipes and finally slapped down the cooker. Of course, the first thing I did was disable auto crafting, as that has screwed me over in the past. I then loaded up the cooker with narcotics that I had left over from taming that Giga, but I still had to do some lawn mowing for tinto berries.
Where is Perry? Oh, hello.
Now, with a ton of tinto berries gathered, I returned back to the cooker and got the medical brews cooking. I also set the cooker to auto-craft everything except dyes, which should keep the medical brew production running smoothly. I then kinda just sat there looking at the brews cook, as I was just waiting for all that to finish before going out to try to complete an OSD. And then, as the sun started to set, I crowded up my Giga and hopped on my Wyvern to head out to the extinction side of the map.
Let's hope it's, I could do a yellow. I'd like a yellow. Oh, it's red. I've got a Giga. Surely I can do it.
There was also a red cave drop just chilling on the surface, so I snagged that before walking over to the OSD to get it started.
That's yellow. I don't know why I thought it was red. Or is it? Man, this is orange. What?
I don't recall there being any orange OSDs back on Extinction, but apparently those are a thing here. And I'm not gonna lie, I really don't know how difficult this thing is actually gonna be.
Why is it orange?
Anyways, I had to try and beat it regardless of its unusual color. At first, I just had a few Rexes, Spinos, and PTs run in, but then the Stegos pulled up, which were actually a bit tanky and hard to deal with. But eventually, I got them and the first wave was over.
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. I've been doing a good job not to hit it. It's these Stegos that cause the issues because they take so long to die.
After the second wave, I checked the drop's health, and honestly, I was starting to worry more about my Giga dying rather than the drop getting destroyed.
It's just insane. That wasn't even on my radar that my Giga might die. Oh, there's the Wyverns.
The Wyverns were pretty useless against the drop, as they attacked it once per 3 business days due to their massive turning radius. However, they could also light me on fire and potentially get me killed off the back of my Giga. My Giga was down to a third of its health by wave 4 while the OSD was doing just fine, so I had to play it a bit safer.
Oh, this is the final wave. Okay, I just gotta survive. Alright, the drop can definitely survive, it's just making my Giga survive. I actually did it, dude.
Now, it was time to see what this mysterious orange drop had to offer in terms of loot.
Please give me a Rex Saddle Blueprint.
Once all the items fell, I grabbed them and stored them on my Giga.
I don't think I got a Rex Saddle Blueprint, sadly.
I did, however, get an Ascendant Thylacoleo blueprint, which wasn't half bad.
I definitely need an imprinted Giga if I want to keep doing this.
I also wanted to keep the metal structures so I could demolish them for resources. But I couldn't carry a lot of them on Night Fury, so I'd have to go back and get my RG from my base. While heading back on day 42, I noticed a red drop coming down, so I flew over to it instead, and inside I found a Megatherium saddle blueprint.
Hold up, this could be huge. Ooh, very expensive. Very, very expensive, but that could be huge.
I returned to the extinction side of the map where that one red cave drop was once again waiting for me.
Does this respawn every time? That's a crazy RG saddle. I might be able to abuse that if it just keeps respawning.
Anywho, I transferred everything from the Giga into Thunderbird, and I headed back towards home. But I wanted to test something before I actually did leave.
Like, now that I'm out of render, let me fly back. Let me see if that red drop's back.
Unfortunately, it wasn't there just yet, so it wasn't respawning every time I rendered the area. Instead, it probably just had a shorter timer than usual. Anyways, once I made it back to base, I brought all the loot into the smithy and threw out the Giga to heal, and I cooked up more narcotics. On day 43, I looked into making the Ascendant Thyla saddle that I got a blueprint of, and it honestly wasn't that expensive either. Before making that though, I headed out once more to collect a couple of drops that I saw in the distance. The first yellow drop had a decent PT saddle inside, not that I would ever need it though. Now the red drop on the other hand, let's just say it was mildly better in terms of loot.
Oh! Rex Saddle Blueprint. Please be good. Please be good. Actually, those chitin gloves aren't bad. Oh, this thing's actually really good. It's not even that expensive. Okay, this is exactly what I needed. Screw the OSCs. Just farm drops, dude. Farm the Lost Island drops.
So that's pretty much the most important blueprint of this challenge acquired. So I made yet another S+ smithy specifically for crafting this Rex saddle blueprint.
Do I make an indie forge? Like, what would I need for it? Because I'm gonna need a lot of metal. Just crystal and oil. I can do that, okay.
So I flew over to farm some crystal and smacked some of it up by hand and returned back to throw that into the fabricator. As for the oil, I remembered seeing some beach bassies on the Lost Island, so I flew over there to farm those.
Another long... Dude, the Lost Island drops are just insane. This is gonna give me oil, right?
It did in fact give me oil, however only a small pinch of it. So I harvested the corpse regardless, as it gave a ton of spoiled meat, which I also needed.
Okay, how am I gonna get the oil? Might just have to fly out to the snow and farm it by hand.
Before heading out to the snow though, I queued up more narcotics in the chemistry bench and then repaired my pickaxe. One journey across the whole map later, I arrived at the snow, specifically the iceberg area where I could farm all the oil that I would ever need.
Back home with the oil. Oh, 145 there, it's mid though.
Now, when I arrived back at the home island, I was greeted by a yellow drop, and inside I got a goated Maywing saddle as well as an Ascendant Velo saddle blueprint. Probably not going to use either of these, but they're still cool to have, I guess. And on day 44, I crafted the long-awaited Industrial Forge.
Boom, S+ Industrial Forge.
I then used the transfer tool to take everything out of the refining forges, and then I picked them all up. And I wanted to place the Industrial Forge down in their place, but however the top of it was poking out of the ceiling that I made.
Oh, it's too big.
That's what she said.
So I made a few extra stone foundations to expand the main platform outwards and place the forge down on top of them. Finally, I transferred all the raw metal into it and I could go on another fat metal run with Anket. Now that I had a ton of metal cooking, I could go out and farm fiber, and that's pretty simple to do with an Ascendant sickle.
Alright, anyways, now that I got metal smelting, it's time to fart. Or time to start farming hide. Shouldn't be that hard with this Giga.
While heading off the island, I stopped by a yellow drop and caught me a new pair of Journeyman flat kicks. Landing down on the island beach, I threw out the Giga, cryoed up Night Fury, and the hide farming commenced.
Yeah, a hide's gonna be so easy with this Giga.
When I returned back home, I dropped off 15,000 hide in the smithy, and I also brought some metal over as well before going back down to the island for round 2. The killing spree commenced into day 46. This time, I stuck around for a bit longer and I brought back almost 25,000 hide back to base. This Giga really is crazy.
Hey, what do I need for more mind wipe tonics?
Just Mayho berries and stimulants. So I made some space in the chemistry bench and grabbed Anket and smacked up a few rocks, and I cooked up some spark powder before hopping on Perry to mow the lawn again. Now, while that was cooking, I went out to get more prime meat. The Ark gods were kind enough to provide me a low-level alpha raptor, which supplied me with all the prime in the world. I then returned back to the crib and threw most of it onto the grill, and I started cooking up one of the mind wipes before running out of the ingredients.
Rare mushrooms.
Since I didn't have a theory to mass farm rare mushrooms in the swamps, I had to resort to thievery. I started looking around the rivers for beaver dams, but after opening just one of them, I realized perhaps I needed a different strategy.
Not a good way.
So I did actually just head over to the swamp and I got rare mushrooms by hand.
Can I get rare mushrooms from this? Oh yeah.
With rare mushrooms farmed, I flew back to base on day 47 and I made the second mind wipe tonic. I didn't drink one yet though, as I still had some farming to do in terms of fiber. Also, due to the giant industrial forge constantly burning, I was now overheating in the base. So I decided to make a few air conditioners to make it bearable. But when I placed those 3 ACs down, I was good, so I could start back to making those saddles.
Start making these saddles.
I threw all the stuff onto the RG and slot capped the smithy and consumed one of the tonics to dump levels in the crafting skill.
These be good.
The first batch of saddles crafted with decent crafting bonus.
Those are some good saddles.
I refilled the smithy with hide and metal and started crafting the second batch.
Need like 4 more saddles. I'll wait for some metal to smelt and farm a little bit more hide, I think.
I grabbed a few essential items from my kit, cryoed up the Giga, and I headed back down to get more hide for the remaining saddles. Back at base on day 48, I filled up the smithy once more and I made another saddle before running out of metal. And while waiting for more to smelt, I grabbed the saddles and then actually put them on the Rexes. I also looked into my main smithy to find a bunch of ingots, so I grabbed those and made the last couple of saddles, and I mind wiped myself back to normal stats. Looking over here, I had a slight fertilized egg overflow issue, as you can see, so I grabbed the excess eggs and threw them out at the hatchery and got one of my Rexes some extra levels. Anyways, I consulted my friend Google again to see all the necessary tributes for the Megapithecus fight, as I'm yet to go out and farm those.
Megalania toxin, megalodon teeth, spinosaurs, fairy claws, and Thylacoleo. I think I've got like half of those. Oh, no. Alright, I've got a lot of tribute farming to do.
So I flew down on Night Fury and parked above the ocean and drew out my compound bow to hunt down me a few oversized fish. Next, I ventured inland towards the green obelisk where the Theris like to hang around. I killed the last tickle chicken on day 49, and while flying around, I spotted a level 145 with decent stats pre-tame.
Might have to tame that.
But for now, it was back to the tribute grind, and next on the list were the Thylacoleo, so I headed out to the redwoods. Eventually, the tree kitties retaliated. When I was flying over the swamp, one of them pulled off an absolute snipe of a pounce on me. It was no match for my ascended sickle though. I circled the redwoods one more time in search of a Spino since I only needed one more sail.
One more Spino, but I can't find one.
I found a 145 slightly up north in a river, so that's all the sails acquired.
Just need Megalania toxin. There's a kipper. New side quest.
I burnt the raptor gang nearby to avoid getting jumped, and now I got back to bow fishing.
Oh, kipper acquired.
Back to the Megalania toxins though. The best way to get a bunch of those is to grab Tranks and head into the Carno cave and knock out the Megalanias in there. If you didn't know, once they wake up, they'll spawn in with new toxin. So I made a quick stop back at base to repair my armor and grab my long neck and Tranks.
Do I have any stimulants to wake him up too? Just to save me time.
I then grabbed Kitty and headed out. Going into the cave, I swam through the moon pool and threw out Kitty and quickly dealt with all the nasties in the entrance. I had to tank through a bit of mega rabies, but soon I spotted the first cave lizard and I shot a trank dart at it, making it drop down to the bottom. While carefully making my way down, I aggroed another Megalania, and it tried to get me but fell down as well, so I continued down the ramp, killing a few bats and scorpions and stealing a blue drop along the way. I finished clearing the bottom of the cave on day 50 and I got to tranking out the Megalanias as well. Now, 2 lizards out cold, I grabbed their toxins and I killed the third one since I only needed 10 toxin in total. And I would get that by just waiting for the other 2 sleepy Megalanias to wake up so I can kill them. And I fed them both stimulants to hopefully speed up their way to the afterlife train.
Got all the tributes, now I just need the one last artifact. The artifact of the brute, which is in the easy underwater cave. Not really sure how I'm gonna get that yet. I also need to tame a Yudi. Let's do that.
That being said, I flew back home to drop off some stuff and I unlocked the scuba set engrams. I made 3 sets of scuba flippers and a couple of tanks, and the plan was to tame a dolphin and just speed through the cave avoiding any combat. I hopped on Night Fury and I flew down to the ocean where I spotted a level 135 ichthy, the perfect culprit for this side quest. Now, I tried to get it away from me, but I forced some prime meat down its throat, forcing it to love me eternally. Now, going back up the base, I unlocked the saddle engram and I farmed some raw metal to craft one. On day 51, I left all my stuff on the RG and I headed out to begin the artifact of the brute retrieval process.
Let's try this. It's gonna go in and out. I hope I can still get to where I need to go with this giant aberration island in the way.
I flew around the general area where I expected the entrance to be. However, what used to be the ocean was now just a river running in between the mainland and the new aberration island.
How am I supposed to get down to the cave?
So I decided to fly out to the end of the island where the snowy side of the map begins, and I threw out the ichthy in the ocean. I then swam all the way along the wall of the island and eventually found the entrance to the cave.
I've infiltrated enemy lines.
I made it to the first land part of the cave where I was met with a blue drop. Don't be deceived though, as this drop had an absolutely goated pair of flak leggings inside.
Whoa.
Anyways, I grappled to one of the stalactites on the ceiling and I rappelled down to the artifact, grabbed it, and then dipped.
Go. No eels, luckily. Not trying to speak too soon though. What is that, Alpha?
Whatever it was, it seemed to be more interested in the cave's walls, letting me swim right by with the artifact. I swam back to my wyvern, cryoed up the ichthy, and then headed back to base. Now, I have pretty much everything I need to take down the first boss. I say pretty much though because there's one big thing that I've forgotten.
Oh, I forgot to tame the Yudi.
So I made a bunch more trank darts just by the end of the day. On day 52, I made stone foundations for the Yudi trap, grabbed a Rex, and I took off to go and find a high-level furry Rex.
Alright, let's go tame a Yudi.
Shortly after arriving in the snow, I was overwhelmed by the sheer amount of creatures fighting. It wasn't unusual for the snow as it's a constant world war out here.
Oh, many Yudis. Okay, well, there's a good one. I don't think this Yudi can fear war me.
Before I could set up my trap though, I had to bring peace upon the land. I killed the low-level Yudi and his group of bodyguards before getting aggroed by the 145. I took off to lose it and I killed 2 of the Carnos following it before trying to set up the trap.
Oh, get in the trap. I'm not done building this thing yet, dude. Chill out.
And one more fear roar later, my wyvern lost its senses and started running around frantically. Once I regained control, I was able to place down the double door frames and leave one side open for the Yudi to walk in. Night Fury got fear roared again, so I hopped off and placed down the rest of the door frames, locking the Yudi in.
Passive. No, quit biting it, you idiot. Idiot. Why are you biting it?
I was also not gonna take any chances, so I went ahead and farmed up the spike walls. I then got some prime meat from a random carno and fed the Yudi and waited for it to finish taming. I made it back to base on day 53, and I needed a few more silica pearls to make the Yudi saddle, so I dipped into the small pond next to my base to grab some.
So many pearls right here. What?
With the saddle now crafted, I threw it on the Yudi and I grabbed a few Rex eggs to throw out at the hatchery.
This Yudi actually has really good melee.
And by the time I was done committing crimes against Mother Nature, the Yudi was up to 4k stamina and over 34,000 health.
Oh, this is a lot of health to heal. Guess I'm just gonna start force feeding it, because I'm pretty much ready for the boss. How much health do my Rexes have? Yeah, I mean, we should be able to mop the Megapithecus.
Since I need multiple cargo plane sized deliveries of raw meat, I grabbed my Giga and headed down to the beach to get it all sourced from the locals. Once back, I dumped all of it onto the Yudi and held down E for an unhealthy amount of time.
This is gonna take a while.
Now, around 21,000 HP, I stopped the overfeeding.
I think that'll be enough health for the boss fight.
Instead, I made a new piece of equipment to add to my kit that might come in handy in the near future.
I wanna make this soul gun as well.
With the Rexes balled up, I fed the Yudi a little more, cryoed it, and grabbed all the artifacts off the pedestal, as well as the tributes from my smithy.
Alright, let's go destroy the Megapithecus. First boss out of 8 that I have to kill. It's day 53. I've got a lot of catching up to do.
There was no more time to waste. I hopped on Night Fury and flew straight out to the blue obelisk. When I arrived on day 54, I got straight to deploying the army and lining them up for the teleport. Now, once all of my dinos were in position, I put the tributes into the terminal and started the Alpha Megapithecus fight.
Do this.
As I appeared in the cold arena, I whistled all of my Rexes to the back so they wouldn't fall into the bottomless pit next to the bridge. I then buffed them all the way up with my UD roar and ran over to introduce myself to the giant monkey.
Oh, he already sees me. Oh, I forgot that rock does a lot of damage.
But my army Rexes were doing slightly more damage. As a matter of fact, the monkey's health pool was absolutely getting shredded.
Oh, but he's getting shredded. Oh yeah. It's just the rock that does a ton of damage.
And it didn't really take my Rexes too long at all to completely clap the monkey and check the first boss off the list. Actually, the fight took less than a minute from the moment my Rexes started biting it.
Boom, dude. First boss defeated, just like that.
I leveled a few of them up with the XP gained, and I waited to be teleported back to the obelisk victorious. Now back to the crib, I was about to throw out the Rexes, but instead I misclicked the whistle follow all button and chaos unfolded.
What? Not mean to do that.
Anyways, I lined up all the Rexes and I could get back to grinding out tributes straight away.
Alright, let's go immediately collect tributes for the Broodmother now.
I did have that Ascendant Thyla saddle blueprint in my smithy, and seeing that the hide was the only thing that I was missing, I decided to take a little detour and farm the hide swiftly. Heading back home though, I got distracted, but I think it was completely justified.
Oh, red drop with the ring on the Lost Island? You know I gotta check that out.
Thankfully though, I didn't need to wait for it to land as the contents were pretty garbage.
Oh, not worth.
Back at base, I finally crafted that Thyla saddle. I then put it on Kitty and stocked up on metal arrows before heading out.
Let's go grind out some artifacts real quick. Get the Hunter, Clever, and then what's the other artifact I need for the Broodmother? I'm not sure. I'm kind of forgetting right now. Kind of blanking.
Now, the first cave I visited was of course the Hunter Cave. Heading inside on day 55, I ran down to the intersection, turned left, and I was met with a small group of ops.
Why is there water in here?
I opened the green drop waiting for me, but the loot was as good as you'd expect, so I continued deeper into the cave where I was soon met with another army of dwellers. After taking care of those, I hopped off to get inside the artifact room. I then grabbed the artifact and I ran right back to Kitty that exited the cave in record time. From there, I headed straight over to the Clever Cave located just under the volcano. This cave was also a pretty straightforward and simple walkthrough with Kitty.
Speed running the cave, dude. Let me at the artifact. Oh no. I got hit with an Arthro.
The exit was slightly more adrenaline inducing though, but I made it out in one piece. So I then did a tiny amount of research to find out where the third and final artifact was.
Oh, lava cave. That's where it is. Shouldn't be too bad. Probably go get that right now as well.
I flew over and ran inside. I did kill a few buggy boys, but I tried avoiding combat as much as possible and parkouring my way through all the lava all the way to the back. And I really didn't have to fight everything that was on the artifact, as I could just grapple to the ceiling above, yoink it, and dip.
Oh!
Also, falling in the lava was part of it, but thankfully I survived, so I headed right back out and home.
All artifacts for the Broodmother have been collected. Before I go out and collect tributes, I want to level my Rexes a little bit more here. Pump more health into them. being honest.
The Broodmother was slightly harder than the monkey, and there was no way I could afford casualties, so giving my Rexes a bit more health couldn't hurt. So I grabbed 5 more eggs for each Rex and dumped all the points into HP, putting them just above 50k each. The leveling continued throughout day 56, and on day 57 I started the tribute grind by killing Argies for their talons and Brontos for their vertebrates in the redwoods. The Diplos weren't safe for me either.
You gotta chill, you're just harvesting meat on my shoulder.
I disabled group whistles on him and continued farming the tributes. Since I also needed Titanoboa venom, I made a stop by the swamp to blast a few snakes.
Capper's just walking around with a dilo in his mouth. What?
Now going back into the redwoods, I deep fried 2 more Argies into McNuggets, and lastly I started killing Sarcos for their skin.
Alright, that's all the tributes.
I then flew back to base and stored them in the smithy and looked through my Rexes that still didn't fully heal.
Now I just gotta wait for these to heal. In the meantime, I could go collect more artifacts. These guys are gonna need food. I could get artifacts for the dragon, maybe the Dinopithecus king, since that island's right there. I still need to tame Theris, man.
As you can tell, I was not looking forward to taming, breeding, and raising a whole nother army, but it had to be done in order to take down the alpha dragon. Once I had the meat, I returned to fill up the trough, and the next thing that I knew, I paused the recording to pull up a classic Granty moment.
Just realized I'm in the Lost Island cave and my recording's been paused. I don't have any artifacts or anything though. Looking for those. My Rexes heal. I need the artifact of the Devious. Not really sure where to get that, because it doesn't normally spawn on the island.
I also didn't know much about the map extension, so I'd have to do my fair share of exploring to find the other artifacts. I stopped by this Mayan temple looking thing and I looked around as if maybe it had a cave under it, but it just looked like another ruined structure, so I continued looking elsewhere. On day 58 I headed back to base and I was greeted by a yellow drop on the island, so of course I peeked inside to see the loot. And I actually got a really nice combo of a flak chest piece blueprint and a crossbow blueprint, both ascended.
I could go out and try and find a snow owl. That would make healing quicker.
On that note, I took off on Night Fury and I made my way over to the Snowy Mountains, where I came across a yellow drop with a crafted ascendant crossbow, a welcome addition to my kit.
Boom. Good drop.
Shortly after that, I also found a decent culprit to tame.
This isn't the greatest, but I think I'll just tame it. Surely you fall asleep from that. Yep.
I grabbed some hide and made spike walls to surround the owl while I went out to get prime meat. I was taming it in the snow, so getting jumped was pretty likely here. But now with prime acquired, I fed the owl, taming it instantly. So I then shot it with my paintball gun and unlocked the saddle engram and then headed home. Now to craft a saddle, I just needed a bit of fiber, so I smacked up a couple of bushes and made one before actually healing all the Rexes. After the first wave, I decided that maybe it would be more efficient to get some stamina on the owl. So I threw out a few Rex eggs to hatch and sacrifice in the name of progress. I also got to healing the Rexes. I assembled 3 groups of 4 and healed them all up to full health. Halfway into day 59, I had all my Rexes fully healed and ready for battle.
Alright man, I think I'm pretty much ready for the Broodmother now. I should kill it. Good hope.
That being said, I cryoed up all my dinos again and grabbed some fried chicken and headed out to the green obelisk.
Oh, I forgot the tributes.
So I did a quick 180 back to base and I grabbed everything. I repaired my flat kit and actually flew over to the obelisk to deploy my army. Now just as I was parking the last couple of Rexes, a Mega Nora of all things decided to peck one of them and destroy the whole circle.
Oh, why? Why? Passive.
So after fixing that and throwing out the rest of the army, I was ready to tackle the second boss of this challenge.
Alright, let's do this. Gotta hopefully easily check off box number 2, hopefully.
Now once in the arena, I immediately hopped on the UD to start courage roaring my Rexes as they got to work on the Broodmother straight away.
Whoa, it's doing a lot more damage than I thought it would, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, a few of the Rexes were not really getting any bites in since they were trying to pathfind to the boss through the rest of the army.
They were about halfway done.
But the Broodmother was still getting shredded at a decent rate. Unfortunately though, I had the first casualty at a fraction of the boss's health.
Oh, whoa, hold up, how's that Rex killed? Well, some of them are bloody. We should have it though. Got it. Only lost 1 Rex. I mean, that thing did do a lot more damage than I thought it would, I'm not gonna lie.
I looked through the Rexes and some of them were pretty much on life support while others were on full health. I also found the fallen Rex's saddle and I grabbed it before getting teleported out of the arena. I packed up everything and flew back home on the morning of day 60.
What is that down there in the ocean? Like an underwater part that I haven't seen?
Anyways, I opened the usual drop that waits for me on my island every time I return home, and I got a decent pair of Ascendant Ghillie gauntlets. I then threw the Rexes back out of base and grabbed a new Rex egg to throw out and hatch since I needed a substitute for our fallen brother.
Need to get my Theris line going sooner or later. I don't need them besides the dragon boss fight. Annoying I have to tame a whole line just for one boss fight, but not much I can do, to be honest with you.
So I started stocking up on Shrink Darts again while waiting for the Rex's imprint timer.
Alright, very taming time.
I did forget narcotics though, so I turned back around to go out and grab those. Now, flying back down to the beach, I spotted a 145 Theris that I've seen before, but its stats were not looking too great. And I remembered seeing another high level somewhere on the other side of the map that had good stats, so I continued flying around looking for that.
Oh, that's even like worse though. That's not even the one I was thinking about. It's a 150 though. It could get crazy after team stats.
But just after saying that, I spotted an absolute gem of a tickle chicken.
45, 25 points in the health, 28 points in the melee. This is what I'm talking about. And it's got cool colors. This is what we needed. If this Theris doesn't come out with good stats, I'm going to be livid.
I quickly put up the trap together and shot a dart at the chicken.
Stuck or something, dude?
Apparently, a couple of trees were all it took to confuse its AI beyond repair.
Seems to be stuck in a tree.
The f you say to me?
Oh! Got it.
So the trap was not that useless after all. I shot it a few more times and knocked it out cold, so I got to crafting up a few spike walls and surrounding it. You see, I left the trap site open as I didn't think anything would aggro from there. But when I left to get Meho berries and came back, a whole Rex managed to find its way to the chicken.
Whoa!
And not just any Rex, a level 145 just to rub it in even more.
Yeah, he just shredded my Theris. Okay, dude. Well, now I gotta wait for this to wake up so I can tame it. I'm not losing this Theris. Are you serious? Of course it was a 145 Rex. What are the odds? Appears out of nowhere. No roar or nothing.
On day 61, I started by farming extra spike walls to fully surround it the next time around. Now, while waiting for it to wake up, I decided to look around at that 150 again to see if it could at least serve as a breeding partner for the 145.
Male? What's like this 150 over here? 150 is the female. I should tame it. It's just surrounded by so much stuff. I don't know. I think it'd be better just to tame them one at a time.
Flying back, I found a second 150 really close to the first one.
There's another 130 or 150. That one, okay, that one's a little better. That one's worth taming. Is it stuck? It kind of looks stuck.
It was actively trying to walk through a tree, which is usual Ark Survival Evolved behavior, so I shot it with a trank to make sure it was actually stuck in place.
I think it's stuck, dude. That would be so free.
Since it didn't move, I continued pelting it with darts, and even as it started torpor running, it didn't get out, so I actually did finish knocking it out. And when I went down to check on it, I spotted another high-level Theris with even better pre-tamed stats.
Here's a 145. That's a female as well. I need to knock them all out and just see which has the best stats, dude.
But first, a little bit of pest control. I took out this Carno that was literally sniffing the sleeping Theris and surrounded it with spikes.
Might need to go back home and make more narcotics.
As I said, I flew back to base and put Perry to work again.
Come on, Perry. We got some lawn mowing to do.
I had plenty of spoiled meat in my fridge from the whale carcass on the Lost Island, so I turned that into a ton of narcotics in no time, and I headed back out to the Theris land.
Got narcotics, time to head back, tame all the Theris. There are so many good Theris over in this area alone. Surely I can get a good enough line to be able to take down the dragon. Hopefully I can get a saddle blueprint as well. I'd like to do the Manticore as well before I do the dragon. That'll be easy with the Rexes. I'm not worried about that at all.
Anyways, back at the Theris, I fed the 150 some narcotics and flew back to the 145 that has woken up by now.
Awake and in the trap.
So I knocked it out again and fed it Meho berries straight away, as it did lose a bunch of food from being knocked out the first time.
Hopefully it'll tame relatively quick. Hopefully it'll tame.
I placed a few spike walls around it just in case, and I watched it from above as it tamed.
Oh yeah, this will tame decently soon. Please come out good. This is such a good Theris.
As per usual Ark stuff, I got jumped by a saber out of nowhere, but thankfully I was quick with my reaction and I put an arrow between its eyes before it could hurt my chicken. Flying over to the other Theris, it was about halfway tamed as well, so I fed it a few narcotics and closed it off again to go back and wait on the 145.
Please be good. Oh, it got so many more points in the health. But it's whatever. That means I don't have to put as many points in the health and I can just chuck the rest in the melee. Whatever, it's still good. Ooh.
On day 62, I flew back to the 150 and waited for that to tame as well.
I didn't even realize there were taxpayers right here.
Anyway, once the chicken tamed, I picked up the spikes and peeked at its stats, but honestly, I wasn't impressed.
Yeah, my other one's definitely better, but we can breed them out.
So I flew back to base to throw out the Theris at the Soul Terminal and got them breeding as soon as possible. Now, while they're doing their thing, I brought a bunch of Rex eggs over to the hatchery so I could power level the new Rex.
Oh, I ran out of gas. That's why they're not hatching.
I quickly cooked up some gas in the Indie Forge and split that into my 2 generators and then waited for the eggs to pop. Now that that Rex was leveled, I could look into getting my Theri line going. But I first needed a perfect breeding pair though, so I needed a female baby to come out with the male stats.
What stats? I'm looking for 7.4k health, 106 melee.
Luckily, the first egg provided exactly that.
Perfect. Got a breeding pair already.
So I renamed it the Perfect F, but I also wanted to see their stats after imprint, so I hopped on Perry to gather some berries for the trough, and I waited around for the timer.
You know what? I want to put my boss flags up. Boom.
On second thought, having them facing outwards like that was kinda awkward, so I replaced both of them back down facing forward. I got the baby Theri imprinted on day 63, but the stats did not get bumped up as high as I anticipated at first.
Oh, okay, because it's only 50% imprint. Okay. I did not know you had to 50% imprint these boys.
So yeah, the Theris needed 2 imprints, which would be a slight nuisance when imprinting the whole army, but nothing I couldn't manage.
In the meantime, I can probably heal up these Rexes as well.
I brought 2 of the most bloody looking Rexes together and started healing up those first. Once the Theri was ready to get imprinted again, I cuddled it and checked the fully imprinted stats this time.
I mean, not bad, I think. I don't really know, I'm not gonna lie. We'll see what the leveled stats look like.
That being said, I made the Theri up a saddle and grabbed a bunch of Rex eggs and waited for the chicken to fully grow up so I could force it to commit serial execution.
So I'm gonna level up with 21,000 health, straight melee. Something better be good, dude.
I only needed to spend a few points in the health to get up to 21k, meaning I had all the points left over to dump in the melee, and it showed.
Okay, hold up. These are actually good. These Theris are actually good.
And I did have a few more eggs hatching, so it's only going to get better. In the end, the melee was just above 1300, so with an army of 19 of these chickens, the dragon should be an easy walkthrough.
These Theris are crazy. Let me go test this thing out.
I flew down to the beach and I smacked up a random parasaur for testing purposes.
Oh yeah, these are very good Theris.
I then returned back to base and threw out the Theri to breed so the eggs would start piling up. Now since I had to wait around, I started looking into the tributes for the Alpha Manticore, which I planned on killing with the Rexes before the dragon.
Wyvern talons, a lot of them, 20 of each, artifact gatekeeper, crag, and destroyer. I'm assuming I can find all the artifacts just on the desert island.
The desert islands were just a small addition to the south side of the map, so if all 3 artifacts were over there, it should be a pretty quick side quest.
I'm assuming there's just a cave, I think. Surely there's a cave in here with the artifacts. Yeah, I see lava.
There was definitely something under this desert hill, I just have to find the entrance. On day 64 while flying around, I spotted a bat just chilling on the surface, which is pretty unusual, so I suspected the entrance could be nearby.
But there's a bat. How are you out here? Oh, it's literally right there.
I parked Night Fury out front and I broke through the rocks in the entrance.
That's some crazy heat. Probably need my Thylacoleo here, dude.
My ghillie wasn't doing much in terms of dissipating the heat, so I had to be quick going through this cave. But before that, I headed back to base and grabbed Kitty, and I also made a few grapples as those might come in handy. Now back at the cave, I threw out Kitty and we started making our way through the countless bats that emerged from the walls.
Holy bats. Really prefer to not get mega rabies.
There was a little parkour section up ahead that looked to be more fitting to complete on foot, so I cryoed up my Thyla and I grappled over to the other side, of course. The parkour stretched a bit farther though than I originally thought, so I had to take out my bow to deal with more bats and the snake.
Yeah, this cave's really scary, I'm not gonna lie. I'm still hearing more.
Going up further, I spotted the artifact, which was about 2 grapples away. I also grabbed a red drop on the way, then grappled to the artifact and got it. However, there was still more to this cave.
Why does this look like an arena? Oh, no, I'm not interested in fighting the lava golem. There is no need. Not one of the bosses that I have to kill.
So I turned back around and started making my way back. One of the grapples I shot went too far though, so I was sent straight down into lava.
No!
I literally survived on life support, however Kipper was not so lucky and he died in the lava instantly. I had no time to wait though. I was about to get burnt, so I quickly grappled towards safety and I died just in time for my body to land on solid ground.
Well, I got the artifact, but at what cost? Oh, there's no way I just lost Kipper. Dipped myself in the lava. Should've just taken my time, man. Idiot. I'm sorry, Kipper.
I flew back on my second Ember Wyvern and I ran in to get my stuff, but there was nothing that could bring Kipper back.
I'm sorry, Kipper. I really am. There's only one artifact in there, though. I need 2 more for the boss. I'm gonna have to search around the desert to try and find those.
Rekitted, I cryoed the wyvern and continued looking around on Night Fury.
What? Alpha Basilisk?
I tried to land and fight it head on, but this basilisk was just the most elite sniper of all time. It hit perfect spits on me, so I decided to go back home and just get my Giga to deal with it.
Don't go on the ground, boy. I'm here for you. Yeah, Alpha Basilisk fang. I'll need that for summoning Rockwell. Still don't know why it was over here, but whatever. Take it.
I flew over to the other small island and I actually found the second artifact in a small ravine.
Maybe in here? Oh, the artifact's right here. That's the same artifact. I guess that's just a mistake on the map. It's funny. Oh, griffins? What?
Another creature I didn't expect to see in the desert, but that wasn't my concern at the moment. You see, the artifact that I just grabbed was the artifact of the Chaos, which is required to summon the Desert Titan, not the Manticore.
This isn't even the artifact that I need. I know there's a wyvern trench on the other side of the map. Let me fly over to that.
Just to make sure that I wasn't losing my mind, I landed by the obelisk in the desert and I looked in to see the tributes. It was still the artifact of the Crag, Destroyer, and Gatekeeper, and then of course the Wyvern talons. Unfortunately, on day 65, my game decided to give up on me completely, so I had to forcefully close it through Task Manager, and that also meant a rollback was certain. I loaded back in and I found myself plummeting straight down into the ocean. Night Fury was way too high up in the sky for me to whistle him, so I had to pop out my other wyvern to go and get him.
Oh wait, did I even... It rolled me back since I had to like force close the game. Did I kill the basilisk? Oh yeah, it's still there. Okay, I'm gonna have to go get that Giga again. And
So I whistled Night Fury down to the ground, then cryoed my other wyvern and headed back home. When I returned, I put the new artifact up for display and I grabbed the Giga before heading back to the desert to once again munch that basilisk.
yeah, that Bassy Fang. Again. Alright, now let's go out to the Wyvern Trench, I guess, to look for the other artifacts.
I also went ahead and grabbed the Chaos artifact that I just found a minute ago. Now, flying into the Wyvern Trench, I immediately grabbed the attention of every single wyvern which was inside, which was to be expected.
Whoa, calm down. Oh yeah, there it is. The artifact of the Deviant. Oh, I do need that, but for this...
I flew away so the wyverns would split up a bit, then headed back into the trench to kill that lightning wyvern.
Oh, he's beaming me.
But Night Fury is just superior, so the lightning wyvern died. I then did one more big circle around the outside of the trench before going in to get the artifact.
Yeah, I do need this artifact for the Megapithecus King, but where are the other artifacts for Manticore?
Anywho, I also spotted a level 190 fire wyvern egg and a level 180 lightning in unattended nests, so I stopped by and copped both of them. But yeah, I had no more ideas of where I could find the Manticore artifacts since I checked out all the obvious locations that have something to do with Scorched Earth. So anyways, for now, I flew back to base and displayed both of the artifacts that I got, and I grabbed a few Theris eggs to start hatching my second boss army.
I need to hatch up these Theris. Need to start the line going. Maybe in the meantime, while I'm raising them, I can do some research on where to find those other artifacts.
The first batch of eggs actually turned out to be pretty lucky. One of the eggs produced triplets, and the other one had twins which had a mutation.
Oh, mutation? Hold up. Nah, nothing into anything good.
The younglings also needed something to eat while they grow up, so I hopped on Perry to do some lawn mowing. After filling up the trough, I waited for the imprint timer, and I got them all fully imprinted.
Okay, the mod that I'm playing, like, that makes this huge map have everything on it, there's a website with all the locations, the artifacts. Too easy, dude. Too easy.
So I wanted to get all these Theris imprinted before heading out to collect the artifacts and doing the Manticore boss fight.
Okay, now that these guys are all raised up and imprinted, let's go get those artifacts. So I need the Destroyer, which is on a Skull Island, and the Gatekeeper, which is in the Wasteland.
I flew over to the Wasteland where I picked up the red drop that spawns there, and I even found a yellow one just up ahead while looking for the artifact.
Dude, where's this artifact at? Wait, what is this?
Opening the terminal showed the 3 difficulty options for what I assumed to be the King Titan, since the terminal was called Extinction ASC, which is short for Ascension most likely. Anyway, shortly after that, I found an Explorer note that nearly ended my game.
Whoa, what is that? Oh, a crazy Explorer note, I guess that's what I got. That effect lasts for so long.
Anyways, I was able to spot the artifact out in the open after some flying around, so I grabbed it and headed towards the Skull Island, which is actually pretty close by.
Giganotosaurus, just don't mind me, just looking for the artifact. Oh, here it is. Check that. Alright, well that's all the artifacts for the Manticore. Now I just need 20 of each wyvern talon.
I flew back home and put up the 2 artifacts for display before checking on my Theris.
Oh, I need to level my Theris, dude. I really don't want to do this though. Need to raise other ones as well.
Some of my Rexes were also nearly healed, while others had plenty of health to go. Moving on, I whistled the Theris away from the hatchery and grabbed some eggs from my terminal and threw out one to hatch.
Well, that's not a theory.
After grabbing actual Theri eggs, I threw them out and waited for them to hatch as usual and waited for imprint while healing Rexes with the snow out.
Alright, let's start leveling these theories.
The mass unaliving of baby Rexes in the name of progress continued in and throughout all of day 68. I finished leveling up the final Theri on day 69.
I think all my theories are leveled.
So now I could go and start farming the Wyvern talons, which was also going to be a pretty grindy and repetitive task. I'm really not looking forward to it at all.
Ooh, drops out at Lost Island. Can't pass up on those.
The first drop didn't have anything worth mentioning, however the second red drop actually clutched up.
Oh, theory saddle blueprint. This island is so cracked.
The blueprint had a decent amount of armor, nothing crazy, but it was dirt cheap to craft.
This saddle's good. This saddle's good. No way, dude. No way.
So I flew back to base to throw it into the smithy for safekeeping, before heading back out to actually get started on the Wyvern talons.
Whoa, why is there a wyvern all the way out here? Why are there multiple wyverns out?
For some odd reason, when I killed the second Wyvern, I didn't even find a talon in its corpse, nor in Night Fury. Looking up into the sky, there was just a bag floating there, menacingly. However, that belonged to a deceased Archie, not the Wyvern.
I don't know where that talon went.
Anyways, I made my way over to the actual trench, and I killed a couple of poison Wyverns that were left in here.
I might do a dino wipe and then fly out of that area, and then hopefully a bunch more wyverns spawn in.
But there was a severe shortage of flying lizards around, and I need to kill 60 of them. So after the dino wipe, I headed back on day 70. I then threw out my Giga at the top of the mountain since killing the Wyverns with Night Fury was pretty awkward. I did have to switch back to my Wyvern at some point since I fell into the trench with the Giga and took a lot of fall damage. Also, a lot of the Wyverns were outside flying around the mountain out of the Giga's reach.
All like just out and about, not even in the den.
The mass extermination of Wyverns came to an end in the early morning of day 71.
Okay, I now have all the talons I need, got the artifacts. Probably can go straight for the boss. Just gotta see how much health my Rexes have.
When I arrived back at base, I looked through the Rexes and most of them were ready, but there were a few that needed proper care.
That guy can use a lot of healing. These are like the last Rexes that really need to be healed, and we're good. I'm not worried about this fight at all. The Manticore is pretty easy.
So when the last squad of Rexes was healed up, I grabbed my soul gun and picked up the whole army. I then grabbed the artifacts, some stimulants, and food. I then flew over to the desert obelisk and cleared off the terminal of any trees, and I began deploying the army.
Alright, man. Let's do this. This should be easy.
I filled up the terminal and started the teleport, and 30 seconds later, I was in the Manticore's arena, ready to absolutely shred it.
Go get them, boys. I'm not worried. Summon all the death rooms you want.
The one unfortunate thing about the Manticore is that he periodically takes flight and disengages from combat.
Oh, it's on me! They're all doing fine health-wise. Manticore does like no damage. It's gonna die before the rock golems even come out. Oh, as I say that, I get hit by a rock. Oh, we are not killing our rock golem. Maybe we are killing a rock golem. Oh, kill the Manticore! Kill it, it's right there, it's right there. Boom. Too easy, dude. Another boss down. Just like that.
Since this was an ascension now, I crowded up all my Rexes so I wouldn't lose them, and I waited to be returned back to the island.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
I looked through the Rexes in my inventory and they were all pretty much fully healed. Anyways, I hopped on Night Fury and flew back home so I could put up the third boss flag. I then hopped on Perry for a very short lawn mowing session since the feeding trough was all out of berries.
Okay, I think I'm gonna need to do a little metal run for these Theris saddles.
I transferred all the metal into the industrial forge, and looking at the blueprint, I'd also need a ton of hide, so I would go out and get that next. While I was shredding through the locals of the southern rivers, I spotted a small kipper swimming around in the water, and I just had to tame him.
Another kipper. I need a new kipper.
I quickly chopped up a fish and started dragging it over before noticing a carno nearby that could cause some issues. So with that taken care of, I dragged the fish over to Kipper and then tamed him.
Dipper V2.
Anywho, I killed a few more things and I wrapped up the hide farm for now and then headed back to base. On day 73, I also remembered that I would need to cook up a bunch of cakes for each Theris. Thankfully though, my passive income machine, aka the greenhouse, was running non-stop and had produced a ton of vegetables. But to make veggie cakes, I also needed sap, which I have not been getting.
Completely forgot that I gotta make cakes, man.
So I made 12 S+ sap taps and I headed straight over to the redwoods to get them all placed. Another necessary ingredient was honey, of course. Luckily though, there's a domesticated beehive in the S+ mod, and if I make it, it will set me back 50 honey jars, but see it as sort of an investment.
Definitely gotta make one of these.
I also needed a bunch of rare flowers, but those should be pretty easy to get with Theris.
Need to make grapples. I'm not even gonna bother taming a bear.
So I got some fiber and made the grapples, and I grabbed up one of my saddled Theris and flew over to the top of the mountain where I supposedly could get a ton of rare flowers from these little shrubs.
Okay, that didn't work. I didn't get any. Alright, why am I just not getting rare flowers?
Yeah, nothing up here was giving me rare flowers, so I picked up the Theris and headed straight to the swamp instead.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there's rare flowers.
And I got way more than I needed in seconds, so then I picked up the Theris. Also, it turns out I didn't need grapples for every hive, as throwing out the Giga and parking it below the redwood tree was perfect for reaching them. For some reason, this side of the redwoods was just full of hives, and a lot of the trees even had like 3 or 4 beehives on them, so I farmed up the 50 honey I needed in no time.
Alright, I think I've got all the honey that I need.
I transferred it back and forth from the Giga's inventory to mine to see that I had more than I needed, so I packed up and headed back home. It finished crafting on day 74, so I found a snug little spot for it to sit at.
Got my beehive. I want to place this down. I'll place it right here.
It needed rare flowers to produce honey, but I had plenty of those.
Alright, produce me honey. Alright, well, we'll see how much that passively produces. I've got sap being produced as well. These are growing more crops. Okay, back to the hide grind for these Theris saddle.
When I returned from the hide farming run, I looked into the domesticated beehive, but I was pretty disappointed with the output.
I mean, yeah, it's making honey, but not a lot. At this point, it looks like it'd be more efficient to go get a bear and get it. That sucks. Really thought that would be better.
Anyway, back to the Theris saddles. Since they also needed wood to craft, I wanted to make a few storage boxes to place down next to the smithy so I could store up a bunch of wood in there. After placing those down, I got visited by a guest that I really didn't expect to see here.
Yo, who are you?
Anyways, I loaded up one of the boxes with wood and then grabbed my chainsaw to go out and farm more. A couple of runs later, I had pretty much all the wood that I needed for the saddle, so back to getting hide.
Oh, I need that.
As the hide farming came to an end, I was rewarded with a rare sight that you don't get to see too often.
2 taxpayers side by side? Cannot complain.
I copped the paste and then flew back home.
Alright, let's go farm fiber real quick, and then mind wipe tonics, and I'm starting to craft saddles.
I needed more stimulant for the mind wipes and I was all out of spark powder, so I brought Anka out of retirement once again. With the spark powder cooking, I hopped on Perry for a short lawn mowing session, after which I could make the 2 mind wipes that I needed.
Alright, let me put pretty much everything heavy.
I reset my stats and maxed out the crafting skill and I got to making the saddles.
Oh, I way over farmed hide.
I just needed 3 more saddles and I still had a surplus of hide. Nevertheless, I crafted 17 saddles total before checking the industrial forge, which had run out of metal. So I ran out and quickly got some and threw that into cook for the last saddle.
Alright.
I then reset my stats back to normal and grabbed my kit and got back to farming metal since my addiction just couldn't stand on an empty forge. When I got back, I grabbed the saddles and I started equipping them on the chickens, but something was off.
What? 5 and 11. Am I missing Theris? Yeah, I'm missing 2. I only raised 16 Theris. What?
The last thing I wanted to do was raise these Theris right now, but I also didn't want to take the risk of losing the fight because of that. So I grabbed up a couple of eggs and threw them out. Now, while the babies grew, I quickly farmed some crystal to make another 2 fridges, and these ones I placed down next to my storage boxes and I would fill them up with honey.
Alright, I need to get the dragon tributes now, which is not gonna be fun at all.
The artifact of the immune was in the swamp cave, and that required a gas mask or full scuba gear, and the other 2 artifacts were also pretty annoying to get.
Oh, I've got some hard artifacts to get, that's for sure.
Since I didn't have any absorbent substrate, I grabbed my scuba and made a couple of leggings as well to complete the set. On day 76, I waited for the Theris' first imprint timer, then hopped on Night Fury to go out and get the first artifact, the artifact of the immune. I landed by the swamp cave in the redwoods, and then cryoed up the wyvern and headed in with my scuba. I did bring a boss Theri with me to clear out the cave since I didn't have a Megatherium and I didn't feel like taming one either. My Theri was more than qualified for running through these buggy boys as well.
This area is gonna be insane.
I couldn't fit it into the next part of the cave though, so what I did was clear any bugs that aggroed to me and then threw another Theri that I brought with me out and then cryoed the first one. While I was swinging left and right, killing everything in sight, I spotted a red drop, and inside it had a crafted Ascendant Rex saddle.
Holy Rex saddle! That is so nice. I'm putting that on my craziest Rex.
Yeah, whichever Rex gets to wear this saddle would basically be turned into the boss himself. Anywho, I had to hop off the Theri as I arrived at the hall leading up to the artifact. I slowly ran through with my flippers and yoinked the artifact and then headed back to my chicken. Now, getting out of the cave was a walk in the park since literally everything was dead. I even put on my regular armor and tanked a bit of that poison damage just to get out quicker.
Alright, let's go get the artifact of the Skylord now. I mean, I could try and go for the ice cave as well. I've got two really strong Theris. I don't know. I'll probably end up going back to base, making more grapples and stuff.
My only concern for the ice cave was the fact that every creature in here hit like an absolute truck. So for now, I arrived at the Skylord cave and I headed in with my compound bow, which was a good substitute for a shotgun considering it pretty much one-shots everything in here. But even this cave can be seriously dangerous. Not because of the creatures inside, but because of the pits of doom that you can fall into. So I made sure to use grapples to get past that, but when I shot it at the ceiling, it landed in an awkward spot where I couldn't fully reel myself up to land. And I was basically forced to shoot another one, which meant certain doom.
Are you serious? Are you serious? And there goes another kipper. Holy Bob moment, dude.
I made new grapples in the smithy and grabbed some bootleg armor and then headed back on Flamette.
Go get my stuff.
I made it back to the Pitfall of Doom and grappled my body and then retrieved my stuff. However, Kipper V2 was now gone, once again due to me not being careful enough.
Alright, let's not have that happen again.
I chose the second route to the artifact, but I had to clear out some bats in order to actually get to it. But the artifact itself was actually blocking my arrows from hitting the bats.
Stupid artifact hitbox.
For some reason, all three of the bats broke and they decided just to fly into the back wall. So I grappled to the ceiling above, jumped down and got the artifact, and then dipped out unscathed. This cave really is cursed though. I'm never coming back.
Get me out of this cave, dude.
Without Kipper, the cold of the caves was also getting overwhelming to the point that I would probably freeze to death if I took too long inside this ice cave. That being said, I stopped by the river near the redwoods on day 77 to chop up a fish and drag it over to a level 145 Kipper. As expected, I needed a second fish, and as I was getting that, I got jumped by a couple of angry chihuahua. Anyways, I took care of them and fed Kipper the second time.
Kipper V3.
Now, after taming Kipper the third, I returned back to the crib to get my stuff sorted out and put the new artifacts up for display. I also looked through my Rexes to see which one would be the chosen one to wield the goated saddle. Now back to the ice cave. I brought two Theris with me as well as my Giga, as I was pretty certain I would actually be able to throw it out inside the cave as well. I then flew across the map again and parked inside the entrance. I then ventured through the crouch point to throw out my Theris inside and start clearing the way. When I made it into the big open hall, I chucked my Giga down to the Prolovius. I then followed it from behind, clearing out the bears and wolves that had left over. Once it was clear, I then switched over to my Giga and continued deeper into the cave. Soon enough, I found myself in yet another choke point where I had to switch back to Theris. I still had to be super careful due to all the buried Prolovius. Those could really end my career in seconds if I get stunned off. I also made sure my other Theri was following closely behind while I cleared all the ops ahead. Luckily, I got through without any scratches and I could throw out my Giga once again.
Oh, pump action shotgun. Are you serious? Please be crazy. Please be crazy good.
And it was actually crazy good, sitting at over 360 damage. Anyways, I continued making my way through the cave, killing everything with the Giga. But on day 78, a Prolovia actually got me off my Theri and I had to act quickly. I swapped over to my best flak armor and chugged medical brews while crossing my fingers. Thankfully, even though my Theris took 12 seconds to react, I was able to survive and hop back on. Ahead of me was the final artifact room that I had to get through, and it didn't have as many ops thankfully. So I kinda just ran in swinging with the Theris and then grabbed the artifact. On my way out, I switched back to the Giga again to clear out a couple of Perlovias as I saw another red drop. Unfortunately though, it had nothing of interest inside, so I continued making my way out of there. Using my grapples, I hung from the ceiling while shooting down on the wolves and Perlovias. And when I made it back to the first part of the cave, I YOLO'd it through everything and ran straight for the crouch point. Just like that, I secured the artifact of the strong, so I flew back to base to display it. Since I have that crazy shotgun now, I unlocked the shell's engram and started cooking up gunpowder.
This shotgun would be better to carry around than this compound bow. So the last artifact that I really have to get for the dragon is underwater. Sucks.
More specifically, it's located in the depths of the hard underwater cave, and more often than not, it takes multiple attempts to retrieve the artifact due to the sheer amount of sharks, eels, and other vermin in there.
I think what I can do, I can probably just bring a Theris and throw it out underwater. My Theris are strong.
It might have sounded like a crazy plan, but I had to give it a try. I dropped most of my kit off and grabbed a set of scuba, my ichthy, and made a sleeping bag before heading out.
Okay, let's go out and try and get this artifact. Red drop on the Lost Island though. Can't pass up that.
Surprisingly though, the loot inside this one was worthless. So I moved on and flew over to a beach close to the cave's entrance. I then placed down my sleeping bag and I parked Night Fury on a rock to keep him safe. And on day 79, it was action time. I equipped the scuba and threw out the ichthy and leveled it into movement speed. One thing that I didn't bring with me however though was the awesome spyglass. It would have came in pretty handy considering it highlights ops for me. Anyway, while swimming over to the entrance, I came across a strange addition to the map.
What is this?
It was a loot drop in the shape of sunken treasure, but the things inside were far from treasure. Now going into the actual cave, I swam right past the jellyfish and sharks, straight down into the artifact hall where I then dismounted and threw out the Theris. I started throwing hands with the sharks, but a jellyfish caught me and stunned me off, so I had to abandon the Theris.
No! Oh yeah, I'm cooked.
I swam just far enough away to throw the ichthy back out and swim up to the artifact. I then grabbed it, turned around, and started speeding past everything. I did get caught by an eel which sent my heart rate through the roof, but I somehow wiggled through everything on life support and made it out of that hellhole.
No way. Holy clutch. Okay, all it took was sacrificing a boss Theris with a pretty good saddle for this artifact. There is no way I should have just survived. Absolutely crazy, I just pulled that off. I am him. I am him and you cannot argue against me.
On my way back up to base, I stopped by the Lost Island to open up a few drops. I got another flak helmet from a red one, but that was about it. When I returned back, I put the final artifact up for display and I rekitted. I made a bunch of shotgun shells and I grabbed Rex eggs as those two Theris that I hatched earlier on still needed leveling. With the two Theris now leveled, I could start farming tributes for the dragon. Some of those were underwater tributes, and normally I would tame a Tuso or something to farm those, but I had a slightly different plan for this time around.
I do have to get underwater tames, or kill Tusos and Bassies, but I think I'm just gonna throw out my Giga underwater.
That being said, I repaired my scuba tank and headed out. However, my first stop wasn't by the ocean. Instead, it was at the volcano to collect all the aloe brains. Flying over to the second mountain, I spotted a low-level Giga, which I also needed to kill for its heart. My Giga was too low to take on that one though, so for the time being, I continued getting the other tributes such as the Rex arms.
Oh, there's 2 Gigas. Okay, which is good. I need 2 Giga hearts. It's just actually killing them.
The tribute grind continued into day 80.
3 more Rex. 3 more aloes.
Shortly after that, I also knocked the 3 aloes off the list.
Okay, that's all the Rex arms and aloe brands that I need. What's next?
So the next stop was at the snow, killing Uties for their lungs. I only got 8 of them as I was pretty certain that I had 2 other ones back at base already.
Go back and get stuff to take out those 2 Gigas.
When I got home, I pulled out the transfer tool and turns out I was wrong. I did in fact not have any Utie lungs, so I'd have to go back out and kill 2 more. Anyways, I grabbed my dino gates for now and made 4 large bear traps so I could trap and kill those 2 Gigas. I didn't want to fight them head on as my Giga would definitely fold to the bleed damage. I made it over to the first Giga on day 81. There was also a nice flat surface for me to set up the trap on, so I placed down the gates as well as the bear trap, and I then got the Giga's attention with my shotgun. Luckily, there were no locals nearby to distract the Giga, so I got it trapped on the first try.
Okay, that was easy.
Now, for some odd reason, the trapped Giga didn't even try fighting back, so I got the first heart scot-free, and I took off to go get the other one. This time around though, the terrain was a bit more rough, but I got the trap down regardless. I then shot the Giga and trapped it again on the first try. Many bites later, the second second Giga folded and I got the heart. So I packed up everything, threw out Night Fury, and headed over to the snow to get those last 2 Yudi lungs.
Finally.
I flew back home and sorted out my stuff. Now the plan was to take a Giga underwater to kill the creatures. However, it was still pretty low on health and I didn't want to risk losing it, so I grabbed a Theris to use instead. So with just a basic scuba kit, the Ichthy, and a Theris, I headed out into the ocean. I parked Night Fury on the beach of Herbivore Island and I got to work.
It actually worked surprisingly well. The Genesis air bubble? What? Oh, it's like Genesis underwater. Okay. Yeah, I don't care to be in here.
With 10 blubber collected, I just needed to find a couple of low-level Tusos. Soon enough, I actually spotted a level 25, so I threw out my Theris to get close, but for some reason, it was not getting aggroed to me.
You not like Theris or something?
I guess the last thing a squid would expect to see in the deep ocean was a giant clawed chicken, so fair enough. Before I could get back to the squid though, I got assaulted by a gang of eels, and as I was fighting them, I hit the squid, resulting in me getting grabbed. That didn't matter though, as the Tuso got shredded. I grabbed the tentacles and then got out of there. I found the second Tuso on day 82. It was a level 130, but I figured I could piece it up just the same. So I slowly swam over and I gave it a couple of slaps before it ran off.
I'm back.
When it decided it was ready to fight me again, I got grabbed, but that was the squid's final mistake though, as it got absolutely deleted.
Caught it. Okay. It's all the tributes.
As I tried swimming up to the surface, I got hit with radiation, so I had to swim across the map the long way around. When I made it back to the Herbivore Island, I hopped on Night Fury and flew back to base. After sorting out my stuff, I made new grapples and flew up to the redwoods to go and check on my sap taps. Unlike the beehive, these sap taps were going crazy.
Ooh, a lot of sap.
In total, they all produce around 124 sap each.
Oh, chill. What are you looking at?
As a matter of fact, I got so much sap I couldn't even grapple to the last tree to collect the rest because I was encumbered.
Yep. Can't grapple if you're encumbered. Forgot about that. Oh!
I headed straight back to base after that jump scare and I dumped all the sap into the cooker. I then farmed up some more spark powder just by the end of the day. After getting stim berries on day 83, I cooked up a bunch of stimulant and then gathered some fiber and started cooking up the veggie cakes. I could make a lot of them, and as expected, the honey was the only ingredient I was waiting for, so I decided I would go and tame a bear. After all, they do spawn on my home island, so finding one shouldn't be an issue.
Man, these things have a lot of torpor.
I thought I would just knock it out in a couple of darts, but seeing even a level 55 bear has that much torpor, I turned right back around and made a quick trap back at base. But it was a trap that I wouldn't even end up using, as I changed my mind about taming that bear shortly after.
You know what? Surely I'm fine to do the fight with just these cakes. Where I'd be fine. Famous last words though, right?
Instead of making more cakes, I wanted to try and make medical brews and fix my armor, since there were going to be Dimorphodons in the arena, and they would attack me instead of my dinos. So I loaded up the cooker with narcotics and I farmed some more berries with a Theris, while also supplying the cooker so it kept crafting. On day 84, I made a bunch of shotgun shells and I grabbed all the artifacts and tributes needed as I was preparing to head out and beat the dragon today. I picked up all the boss Theris, grabbed the Yudi and then the cakes, and then headed out to the red obelisk on Thunderbird since I was too heavy to fly on Night Fury. Now, when I arrived at the obelisk about half a decade later, I threw all the cakes onto my RGs so I could move and deploy all the tickle chickens. Once they were all lined up, I distributed the cakes and got ready to start the fight.
Oh, let's do this. This boss fight is terrifying.
I teleported into the burning arena and I quickly hopped on the Yudi to whistle my army of chickens away from the spawning platform.
Okay, I'm not overheating in here, which is good.
I started courage roaring to buff my army while the dragon casted fireballs from above. I also managed to get stuck on the ruins somehow. Move! Move! Thankfully, I got out of there just in time and now the fight was on. All of my chickens versus this dragon. I got hit by a straight fire breath straight away, sending the Yudi's health down to a third. And before the dragon lost even half of its health, one of my Theris died.
What? Hopefully that was just one that didn't have cakes.
The dragon's health was still dropping way too fast though. Soon, another trio of chickens got clapped and it was starting to get serious.
Oh no.
I tried to help as much as I could by pulling out my freedom stick and blasting the dragon.
Come on, boys. Power through. Surely we got it. Yes! Oh, he died to fire damage after. Oh, dude, that fight is always so stressful.
Surprisingly, a few of my Theris were actually up at full health, and they didn't even eat any cakes while the others got burnt to a crisp. After teleporting back to the island, I picked up the brave fighters that remained. I then also collected the cakes left over and flew back to base. When I returned on day 85, I stored the cakes away in a fridge. I then sorted out some stuff and I placed down the dragon's flag next to the beehive.
Next up, Megapithecus King.
I flew over to the Lost Island obelisk to see the requirements. Almost immediately, I got attacked by comp harpies and raptors, so after dealing with those, I looked into the terminal again. I needed to get the artifact of the Devious, Devourer, Hunter, and Massive. Then 2 Basilisk Scales, a Gigaheart, 10 Megalodon Teeth, 2 Spinosails, 5 Theris Claws, 2 Tuso Tentacles, 5 Rex Arms, and 2 Yudi Lungs. So that's quite a bit of stuff that I have to get, and I've got no time to waste. So I returned back to grab my Thyla and flew out to the first cave straight away. I arrived at the lava cave and headed inside. I then made my way through with Kitty, but this time around there were slightly more creatures than last time.
Dude, why are there like extra creatures in here?
Anywho, I killed everything since Kitty is built different, and I actually spotted a cave drop with a shotgun blueprint inside. I aggroed all the bats over with the shotgun, then mauled them so I could grapple over safely. And let's just say the blueprint was slightly better than my crafted shotgun.
Oh, that's not crazy expensive. I could so craft that. I've got a good one, but this one's even better.
Back to the artifact though. I grappled over to shoot and kill the remaining buggy boys in the area before I could go and grab it.
Roof spiders, nice.
Once the coast was clear, I grabbed the artifact and grappled back to Kitty. I made it out of there in one piece and flew back to base to throw up the artifact for display. I then went out to get the second one over at the Hunter Cave. I ran all the way to the back where I then climbed up onto the wall so I could shoot down on all the nasties below. I then ran in and grabbed the artifact, and I ran straight past everything else and out of the cave. Now with 2 out of 4 artifacts secured, I flew straight over to the Carno Cave. And on day 86, I crowed up Night Fury and headed inside. Once again, the cave was full of bats, even more than you'd expect, and somehow I didn't get mega rabies after killing the first wave. So I jumped all the way down and grabbed the artifact and then climbed back up and out of the cave. Now with 3 out of 4 artifacts retrieved, I flew back to base to display them, and I returned to the Lost Island obelisk to check the tribute list once again.
Holy tributes, dude.
For this fight, I didn't need a whole lot of tributes from specific creatures. Instead, I needed a couple tributes from a lot of different creatures. So I kicked things off by getting a Spinosail, 2 Rex Arms, and a few Theris Claws near the green obelisk. I then flew over to a mountain to get the rest of the Rex Arms. The next stop was at the snow. I killed the second Spino for the last sail that I needed, and I clapped 2 Udis as well.
Need basilisk scales. Let's go over to the aberration area, see if I can't find any. Only need 2.
Shortly after arriving at the Aberration Island, I found the first scaly friend buried in the ground.
Oh, it's an alpha Karki right there. What?
Anyway, I clapped the Bassie and got one of the scale. I also wanted to kill that Karki for the Alpha Claw. Instead of fighting it with Night Fury, I headed back to base to get my Giga, and I also brought my trap, my long neck, and darts to trank out the Megalania. I flew back to the Aberration Island and threw out the Giga before sending the crab into the Shadow Realm. I did, however, get distracted by a red drop that had an Ascendant flat chest piece inside. Back to the Alpha Karki though. It had quite the health pool, so it took me a minute to even kill it with the Giga. And while I was biting it, the second basilisk I needed pulled up and straight up donated its scale. With the claw also secured, I headed out again towards the mountains as I needed one more Giga Heart.
See, this is gonna be hard to do because there's so many dinos it's just gonna aggro to. See if there's any other ones.
I did find a car on the other side of the hill, so I set up my trap and got its attention.
Hello! How are you, my friend?
It got into the trap just fine, but its fat tail obstructed me from placing down the last gate in time, so the placement was super scuffed, and as a result, it got out. But I got it secured on the second try.
Why is he like floating up? Okay, I think I have it.
Next up, I headed over to the Carno Cave to get the Megalania toxin sorted out.
Seriously? Only 1 Megalania on here? I mean, they wake up decently quick. Guess I'm sitting here for a minute.
So on day 88, I waited for one more sleep cycle, then killed it for 2 more pieces of toxin.
Hey, let's go to the Hunter Cave.
I exited the Carno Cave, and I first flew back to base where Night Fury took a fat dump before taking off to go to the Hunter Cave. Now, why did I go back to base, you may ask? Honestly, I have no idea. I must have been super zoned out or something. Anyways, when I entered the Hunter Cave, I threw out Kitty and looked around the left side, but I couldn't find any Megalanias. And just as I was about to leave, I decided to check out the other side of the cave, and there I found exactly what I was looking for.
Oh, there's one. And I almost left. Oh, there's a ton of them.
I knocked the first one out before realizing there were enough of them for me to just kill all of them and get all the toxin that I needed.
There's no way the body just went in the water.
So I dove in to get the toxin and quickly swam back up to Kitty as I was getting chased by a whole nation of piranhas.
Alright, got all the toxin I need.
I made my way out of the cave and back to base. The only tributes missing now were the Megalodon teeth and the Tuso tentacles. So I repaired my scuba gear and I outsourced the Megalodon teeth from my own pond, since that spawned sharks for some reason.
Okay, now just
The Tuso tentacles. I only needed a couple though, so I swam out in the ocean with a Theris in my pocket, and I killed the first squid that I encountered. I think I've got everything for the Dinopithecus fight now. Now, this fight is actually hard. I did a little bit of research, and I'm pretty sure what I have to do is, hopefully the arena is the same on this map as it is on Lost Island. But basically, I've got to get to a covered place, so it can't use a certain attack that does a lot of damage or summon as many minions. But this fight could be pretty rough. There was only one way to find out, so when I got back to the crib, I collected my Rexes and the Yudi. I might bring in 2 Theris. Since I only had 16 Rexes, I grabbed the male and female Theris to aid in the fight. I'm not totally sure if I can get hit off my mount, but, you know, we'll see. I think I'll be good though. I made a few more shotgun shells before heading out to the Lost Island terminal. I've got that one Rex with like the 230 armor saddle. That thing should deal a lot of damage because he's not taking a lot of damage, so he's not gonna die too easily. Anyhow, I lined up my army ready for the fight, but when I threw out the Yudi, I noticed it was barely healed, so I had to fly back to base and grab my snow owl. That should be good. I've got everything I need. 89, let's do this, boss. So I made sure all my dinos were on passive so I could whistle them over to a safe spot. I should be able to kill this boss. Should be able to. If not, I'll punch it a hole in my monitor. No doubt. I then put all my tributes in and started the teleport. The arena was luckily the same as it was on Lost Island, so I took my time getting my Rexes to where they needed to be, even if that meant helping the less developed ones out. Yep, there's the cave where I need to be. So this is back where I need to be. I'm gonna break some of these rocks, post up against the wall. Now that I had my army in position, I fully buffed them up with the Courage Roar and ran over to get the big monkey's attention. Got him. Go, go, go. Oh, he's coming. Dodge the poop, can't get hit by the poop. Okay, I made it back. The Rexes had lost their buff by now, so I whistled neutral on them and I began Courage Roaring them again. Get them, boys! With the monkey getting fully surrounded by my army, its health started dropping super fast. Oh, we are taking a lot of damage, but now we're doing a lot of damage. Why are my Rexes getting frozen? What? I didn't even know that was a thing. Oh, that hurt. A lot of my Rexes were attacking it from the back and they were doing just fine, but the front ones were starting to get a bit bloody. But it was far too late for the Dinopithecus as his health bar was basically non-existent. Oh, there goes the Theris. Oh, they nearly survived too. Okay, all we lost are some Theris. That's okay. Awesome, dude. Another boss down. Just like that, I beat boss number 5 and spared my monitor. I got teleported back on day 90 and picked up my army before heading back up to base. Is it even worth throwing the Rexes out? Because they heal in the ball and they don't lose food. I left them all crowded up and I stored them in a storage box for the time being. As for the Dinopithecus flag, I placed that between the artifact pedestal room and the greenhouse. So much element that I'm just not gonna use. Alright, I think next, Crystal Wyvern. I basically just needed to kill a bunch of Crystal Wyverns for their talents, so I headed out to do that. I did see a red drop with a ring though coming down on the Lost Island, so I flew over to take a closer look. Anywho, I made it to the other floating island where the tropical wyverns spawned and I started hunting them down with my shotgun until I actually got hit by their breath. So I continued using Night Fury from then on. There weren't that many tropical wyverns here though, and I only got 6 talons before flying out to look for the blood wyverns. That was the only blood wyvern that I found though. So I headed back towards base and I found one more ember wyvern chilling down on the beach, so I introduced it to the second amendment. And I managed to get 11 out of the 15 necessary talons by the end of the day. That's finally all the talons done. Unfortunately, that was just part of the tribute grind. The Crystal Wyvern Queen needs 7 artifacts, those being the Pack, Gatekeeper, Crag, Destroyer, Shadows, Lost, Stalker. And 3 of those I'm yet to even see, so a little bit of research would be mandatory. Back at base, I made even more grapples and shotgun shells as I was getting ready to go through the various caves once again. I gotta go back to the lava cave for artifact of the Crag. It's annoying. I just will knock that out real quick. And I gotta get 7 artifacts. That's really annoying. Also, I haven't seen any alpha crystal wyverns. I'm not totally sure that they actually spawn on this map, so I might have to summon those in because they don't spawn. Anyway, that would be a future problem for a pretty near future me. For now, I had to get the artifacts though, so I dug into the crag cave where I lost the OG Kipper, and I made my way through blasting all the bats out of the way. Come out that metal node, boy. This time around, I tried to be as careful as possible with my grapples, to the point I stopped paying attention to the other dangers in the cave. It scared me. Oh, that scared me. Oh, Could you guys tell that scared me? My heart rate once again through the roof, I grappled to the artifact, snagged it, and carefully navigated my way out.
Okay, let's go get the artifact in the pack, and then Gatekeeper and Destroyer? Where would that be? Just in Skull Island, okay.
The next cave I ventured into was the Pack Cave, but I noticed someone was missing when I went into third person.
Where's Kipper? I don't know where Kipper's at. I'll be quick.
I grappled to the bottom of the cave and ran through the corridors, holding my freedom stick to scare off any wannabes. And I only threw Kitty out deeper inside the cave to clear out the big room with the ruins so I could safely grapple up to the artifact room.
You got a 7.
And just as quick as I made my way in, I exited the cave at the same speed. I got back to the crib on day 92 and I put up the 2 artifacts for display before looking for Kipper.
There he is. Sorry, dude. Guess I forgot you.
I grabbed my Giga and I flew all the way over to Extinction to grab the artifact of the Gatekeeper. From there, I flew straight to the Skull Island for the artifact of the Destroyer, and that checks off all the artifacts that I've collected previously.
Aberration Blue Cave. What? Lunar Cave? Oh, I gotta go to this island that can teleport me to the lunar.
I flew into the cave on the floating island in the middle of the map and then teleported over to the lunar biome.
Lunar Cave? Where's that at?
I used the guide to help me find the entrance, and then flew inside and spotted the artifact straight away as it was just chilling on a pillar in the center of the cave.
Now, Aberration Red and Blue Cave. Is there gonna be radiation? That could be a very big problem.
There was radiation in the certain part of the ocean, and it got me worried as I didn't have any resources to make a hazmat suit.
What is that? Is that really an OSD or is that just a drop?
I flew close to investigate, and apparently there's UFOs now in Ark.
I don't know, that thing's scaring me. Leaving.
I returned back to the teleporter pad and got teleported back to the main island and flew out to the aberration area.
Man, I can't see anything. Okay, here's a cave entrance.
I picked a few mushrooms from the entrance thinking they were freezing spore. Inside, I threw out my Giga as I didn't know what to expect yet.
Where's my artifact? Is that it? Oh yeah.
Once again, a pretty simple snatch and grab. Nothing really dared to mess with me since I was on my Giga, so I exited the cave and threw out Night Fury and began looking for the red cave. After finding the entrance, I killed a basilisk that was nearby and I carefully inched inside.
Where there's gonna be radiation in here? No? Okay, sounds good to me. Oh, I spoke too soon.
I checked the guide to see that the artifact was actually close by, so I could likely just run up to it and get it and leave. I threw out Night Fury and I flew to the back while chugging brews, but I couldn't see the artifact anywhere.
There's no radiation right here. Where's the artifact?
What? Oh no, Kipper!
I'm losing all the Kippers this video, dude.
Kipper the Third was also lost to me not paying enough attention. May he rest in peace along with both of the other Kippers that I've lost in this video alone. On a side note, the radiation hitbox in this cave was pretty janky. I could walk out into the open in some certain spots without getting poisoned.
What's that guy doing?
Anyways, I then flew to the back of the cave again, but there was no artifact anywhere in sight. I triple checked the guide to make sure I was even on the correct coordinates.
I'm there, dude. It should be right here.
There was some sort of text structure beneath me, but I couldn't check it out as there was a Reaper roaming down below.
Is that a rune? Is that what that is?
I waited for the Reaper to back off a bit before going down to check it out.
Yeah, it was just a rune.
After a minute, I concluded that the artifact just wasn't spawning correctly, so I flew back to my Giga and exited the cave.
Whoa! On my phone for 1 minute. Well, this is dumb, but I've got to spawn it in because it wasn't there like it was supposed to be. Whatever. I've got all the artifacts.
While flying back to base on day 93, Ark decided to turn my PC into a microwave and completely ruin my FPS.
What is happening? I'm a slideshow. Why am I reduced to 1 frame a second?
A relog fixed it though, so I flew back home and placed down all the artifacts up for display.
Oh yeah. Looking good.
So the only thing left to get were the talons from the Alpha Crystal Wyverns that clearly don't even spawn.
But like, I guess I'm just gonna have to summon in Alpha Crystal Wyverns because they don't spawn.
I would still have to kill them as if they spawned in naturally, so there's no harm getting them to appear on the world forcefully.
Alright, let's get to summoning in these Alpha Wyverns since, you know, they just don't spawn.
By the might of the Ark gods, I uttered a sacred saying in the holy console, and behold, a mighty Alpha Crystal Wyvern appeared right before me. So I hopped on the back of Night Fury and the dogfight of the century began. Since this was a Blood Crystal Wyvern, I could use my Flame Breath attack on it. However, it also meant that the Blood Breath would do numbers on me.
This thing's actually pretty strong. I'm just gonna deploy my Giga.
Since the Alpha Wyvern looked to be the next generation counterpart to Night Fury, I decided to pull the anti-air weaponry out instead. Safe to say, it was much more effective.
The Wyvern. I love these glove skins. They look so cool.
Anywho, I flew back to base to store the primal crystals away, and since you can't put them in a fridge, I tried to make a preserving bin instead. But that didn't even extend their spoil timer.
Oh, no. Okay. They don't. What if I put them in a Wyvern? Okay, they last longer in a Wyvern.
I also went out to get some raw meat so it wouldn't eat the crystals. Back to the Alpha Wyverns though. I needed 4 more talons, so I hopped on the Giga and I started chanting spells for each Wyvern to spawn. Once I had all of 5 talons, I returned back home to store all the primal crystals away.
Alright, I think that's all the tributes I need for the Crystal Wyvern boss farmed, right?
I did in fact have all the tributes, but there's one thing I was missing that I couldn't end this 100 days without.
I wanna go find a Kipper.
After 3 tragic losses, I was back out near the river, searching for Kipper Jr. the 4th.
And I'm like struggling to find an otter.
Shortly after saying that, I actually spotted 2 Kippers guarded by a baryonyx that I had to take out before I could get to fishing.
Hello, sir. Oh, there's a huge pack of raptors.
I distanced myself a bit before throwing Kipper V4 down on the ground and naming him.
Rough video for the Kippers.
Rough, in fact, it was. The first Kipper was grilled alive in the desert lava cave. The second Kipper fell down into a pit of doom in the Skylord ice cave. And the third Kipper succumbed to long exposure to radiation. Now it's up to Kipper the 4th to carry the torch and hopefully survive the remaining days of this challenge. That being said, I just needed to get my Rex army ready for the fight since I basically had everything already to start it.
Oh, my Rexes need to do a lot of healing.
For some reason, I only had 14 Rexes now as well. Don't remember losing any though.
Where are my other ones? Did they die? Oh, they're literally right here. How did I miss them?
With the lost Rexes located, I could start the long process of healing each and every single one of them up to full health. You see, the Crystal Wyvern Queen would be the last boss that I'll take down as I'm nearing the end of this 100 days. There's no possible way I have enough time to farm the tributes for the other bosses. That being said, days 95 and 96 were spent healing every Rex up to full health.
Got everything healed up to where I need it to be. Finally, man. Okay, so as you guys can see, it is day 97. There is no way I'm killing Rockwell or the Overseer within the 100 days, that is. So I'm still gonna do my best and definitely fight the Crystal Wyvern on day 100. So I've actually never fought this boss before. It is a Crystal Wyvern, so it's gonna be flying around, so I'm assuming I'm gonna need a bunch of shotgun bullets as well.
On that note, here's a short but epic farming montage for the final preparations before attempting to tackle the final boss.
Got over 1,000 shotgun shells. Surely that's enough.
As day 99 rolled around, I picked up the Soul Trap gun and picked up my Rex army for transport. The Crystal Wyvern Queen terminal was actually on my own island, so I didn't have to go too far to deploy them. And as I was starting to do that, I spotted what I thought I would just never see out in the wild.
The Alpha Wyvern? What?
It started throwing hands with the local Ember Wyvern, so I crowed the Rex and I flew back home to grab my Giga. With the area secured, I could actually deploy my army on the terminal and prepare for day 100.
Get 2 of my Theris with cakes as well over here. Might as well. I've got room for them in the fight.
I still have plenty of veggie cakes left that the 2 chosen tickle chickens would share, so I threw them out and parked them in the circle and then gave them the cakes.
Okay, let's go get the tributes.
I grabbed a few extra medical brews, some food, refilled my canteens, and then grabbed the artifacts. Flameat had all the primal crystals on her, so I flew her over to the terminal. And now all that's left to do is wait for the day of reckoning.
Okay, it is day 100. I have everything I need. I have my boss army ready to go. I have a general idea of how to do this boss. I'm pretty sure I gotta back myself up into a corner, and that will be the most efficient way to take it down. Never fought this boss before. Can't be that hard, right?
There was really only one way to find out, so I waited for the countdown before getting teleported into unfamiliar territory.
Okay, I see the corner that I have to go to. Gotta get over here.
Smaller wyverns were already on me, being little nuisances, but I got my whole army over to the corner and I started courage roaring them. I did whistle them to neutral for a second, but they all rushed the queen, so I got them back to following me.
Alright, why is it not coming over here?
It was just kinda staring at me menacingly, so I changed the strategy to brute force. Now with all my Rex's courage buffed up, I sent them in to bite the queen.
Jeez.
The wing flap attack was slightly annoying, but she wasn't actually doing a whole lot of damage. Same cannot be said about my Rexes though. They were absolutely tearing her up until she took flight.
Okay. Now follow me to this corner.
Now it's time to pull the corner strat again. I got all my Rexes into position and the queen literally landed on top of me.
Oh yeah, there we go. This is what I imagined.
She kept flying up and down, breathing blood on my army, which wasn't exactly optimal. Eventually though, she landed nearby, so the whole army rushed her again.
We're doing good on health, I think.
The queen, on the other hand, was down to about half health, so she took off into the sky again.
Yeah, fly down here, dude. You're just gonna get annihilated.
I was slightly stuck in all the Rexes, so I couldn't do much except keep roaring and waiting for the Wyvern to land.
Is this Theris stuck?
After a minute of absolute tomfoolery, the queen landed again, this time in the back of the arena, so I quickly rallied my army to push.
Come on, sick 'em. This one Rex is going in all alone.
But as the whole army arrived, her health started dropping again.
There we go, here's some damage. Yeah, nobody's lost too much health to be worried.
At a fraction of its health, the queen took flight once again, so I was back to running around. I did a good job keeping the buff up on my Rexes and occasionally shooting the queen with my shotgun.
Oh, there's one Rex getting annihilated over there. Man, dude, you know you're not winning this. Ow, oh, it hit me off the back? That's not good.
I backed up into the trusty corner again so my Rexes could get a few bites in even while it was still flying.
Like, the move honestly might be just to pull out my shotgun at this point. Why is it just sitting there looking at me? What is it doing? It looks like it's stuck.
I made sure to keep the Rexes buffed up, but I also kept pelting the queen with shotgun shells until her AI realized what was going on.
Like, yeah, dude, it's literally just stuck. Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not.
I dismounted for just a second to get a few shots in, and one of the Rex's tails swatted me off my Uti, so I had to hop on the Rex just to be safe.
Where's my Uti?
Once I got back, it was back to roaring. For some reason, the queen just refused to land, so we had to slowly chip her health down in the corner.
Yo, get this guy. Get the big one. I'm biting it too with my Uti. Okay, it's almost dead. Come on. Really, we got it. Get it right here. It's right there. Got it. Awesome.
A pretty anticlimactic fight, but we got there in the end.
So I know I set out to beat more bosses originally, but I was able to defeat 6 in 100 days. That's pretty good if you ask me. So I'm actually gonna link all the mods that I've been playing with down below and this huge mod that combines all the maps. So see for yourself, install those mods and see how many actual bosses you can beat in a certain amount of time, maybe even 100 days. And then come back to this video and let me know in the comments how many you were able to take down.
And don't forget to do that with a kipper of your own on your shoulder at all times.
Thank you so much for watching. This was a crazy journey. Kipper, do you have any final words?
We don't need to talk about what happened to the other kippers, man.